Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regular Committee of the Whole meeting for March 12th, 2018. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. I want to first recognize that we're holding this meeting on the traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nations. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. Ms. Gurry.
On the addendum this evening, we are changing the name of Dawn Hubbard to Lauren Goodall for agenda item 13A, and they are going to provide council with an introduction and purposes of the new Sir Oxman Stadium Board of Directors in partnership with the City of Nanaimo. And we also are adding a scheduled recess at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does council have any other late items? Councillor Armstrong.
Yes, I'd please like to add Allison Evans as a late delegation regarding use of needles in public areas.
Thank you. So are you suggesting she go at 9, public safety?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a seconder? It's moved by Councillor Armstrong and seconded by Councillor Fuller. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to add Mr. Matthew O'Donnell regarding, I don't know what the subject would be, the tents at City Hall, I guess. Call it what it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So, seeing no further late items, I call the question with respect to the motion of the adoption of the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Your Worship, I just want to make a note that those added delegations get 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Thank you. So the next item is for motion for the adoption of the minutes of the regular Committee of the Whole meeting for February 26th. Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So, just before we get into the the meat of this, where do we suggest Mr. O'Donnell goes, Ms. Gurry?
It could go under public safety as well, Your Worship, or it could be 13E under delegations or 13F.
I would suggest that perhaps council consider moving it to putting it under 9B.
Yes.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, that's
All right.
good.
So call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So Mr. O'Donnell will be 9B. Very good. So the first item on the agenda after that, of course, is presentations. First presentation is the Fire Rescue Summary Report, and it's going to be led by Karen Fry, our Fire Chief and Director of Public Safety, to provide a summary of the 2017 fire rescue. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. And I'm actually just really pleased to see so many people in the audience come out to learn about the fire department, what we've been up to in the last year. So thank you for that.
It's all about you.
Well, we're here to serve you, Your Worship. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we've done in the last year. As we know, the population in the city of Nanaimo through StatsCan has increased 7% over the last 5 years. And at the same time, Nanaimo Fire Rescue has seen an increase in calls for service of 38% over that same time frame. And a 9.9% increase between 2016 and 2017. So continually, our calls for service are increasing at a higher rate than the population. And as council remembers, we saw this same kind of a report from the police a few weeks ago as well. So, you know, we're responding to and projected to probably go to over 10,000 incidents in 2018. And a little bit about our incidents. In the summer, we do see a higher call volume. but not overall. It stays pretty consistent, and as well, the same consistency over day of the week. So everybody needs the fire department to respond every day of the week. We don't take days off. And again, our response by time of day. Traditionally, we would see the peak hours in fire rescue responses really peaking between about 4 and 8 o'clock in the late afternoon and evenings. And this is gradually starting to spread out more throughout the day with our low call volumes generally when people are still sleeping. But saying that, when people are sleeping is the greatest risk for traumatic events as well. So out of our 9,665 incidents we went to last year, it's not just about responding to fires. 68% were medical aid responses. And I think council has heard that, and that's one of the reasons why the increase in calls. We are receiving a couple more ambulance and paramedics in town, but we do act as first responders and provide a valuable response to the department or to the community. As well, many of our structure fires and fires are lower in call volume, but again, they are higher risk, low probability and higher risk for damages. Council a lot has talked about, and we've addressed to council lots about our zones and station areas. So we have 4 career-staffed fire stations, as well as other service areas in town. We have Duke Point, Hammond Bay, Jinglepot, and Westwood outside of our service areas. So over the last 5 years, Station 1 has seen an increase of 45% to their workload. And that was over 12% even last year, an additional 400 calls. So on the chart there, you can see Station 1 by far has the most calls for service out of that fire station, as well as the lowest point being out in Duke Point, which is primarily industrial. Station 2 has seen an increase of 25% in the 5 years, Station 3 30%, and Station 4 30% as well. You can see in 2017, Hammond Bay area actually received more incidents than Station 4. And that's increasing probably due to the medical responses and the aging population. So we all know there's an overdose crisis. We've heard about it through the media, the public, the health officers. BC Ambulance has coded us, we call it a code card 23, which they code as overdoses. Many times we go to overdoses that aren't coded as overdoses. They may come in as a cardiac arrest or a man down or seizures are unknown. So this is a 282% increase since 2013. And in 2017, we began tracking ourselves what the actual outcome was, whether it was an overdose or it was a cardiac arrest. And instead of 356, we recorded 461 overdoses. And 72% of those are in Station 1's area. Our crews are trained to administer naloxone, part of our training. In 2017, we administered it 40 times at 8.7% of our overdoses. In the first 2 months of 2018, I know I'm supposed to be talking about 2017, but 14.2% of the time we're administering naloxone to the overdoses we respond to. And just as a little side note as well, in the first 2 months of this year, January, February, we've seen a 3.5% increase in overdose calls over the same time frame as last year. So I know sometimes in the province they're talking about it stabilizing. We're not seeing that here. And if the same trend continues, we will be responding to over 550 overdoses in the city next year, or this year, sorry. So apart from the responding to calls, our crews trained over 16,000 hours in 2017. That includes safety talks, health and wellness, emergency driving, fire dynamics, officer development courses, and skills maintenance. We don't just learn hazardous materials, we have to maintain those skills monthly, weekly, yearly. So council has previously set direction on a 6-minute response time, trying to receive that 90% of the time, 4-member engine staffing, and also our 2016 to 18 service delivery plan. And we're not making our response targets. So in 2017, it was at 77% of the times. We arrived the first unit on scene 90% of the time. And, you know, it's staying pretty consistent in the last 5 years between 80 and 77. And primarily that could be for multiple duplicate incidents occurring at the same time and coming from a bit further to some of those incidents when we're downtown. One of the other things we hear a lot of people talking about is that fires are going down. Well, overall, fires are still going up. They may be going down per capita as our capita is increasing. And this chart demonstrates the different types of fires that we report to. So these are all reportable fires that we report to the province on when they occur. Outdoor fires are also caused a lot of the time with burning complaint, illegal burning campfires. We're seeing more of those this year as well. It was a 22% increase over last year in the total fires. We went to 218 outdoor fires, 111 structure fires, and 37 vehicle fires. Again, reportable structure fires. So in 2017, there were 111. So these are fires where we have to report and do a fire investigation on. And as council is well aware, we actually had a tragedy with three lives lost last year and 17 injuries at fires. So our reportable residential structure fires, we also had 84. So residential structure fires are fires that occur in people's homes. And this chart indicates the status of the smoke alarms. This is big, right? Your chance of surviving in a fire is 75% greater if you have a working smoke alarm. So overall in the city, last year, 32% of the fires had a working smoke alarm. And that's increasing, or 32 of the fires had a working smoke alarm. We're getting better and we're focusing on it. The service delivery plan, when we met with you last year, we said what we are going to do. We're going to target reduction in structure fires in our high-frequency areas through risk-focused prevention programs, improve survivability rates for cardiac arrests, improve public preparedness for major disasters through the delivery of enhanced public education. We weren't asking for any additional resources, and I'm not about to do that this time. And later this year, we'll be doing a major review and requests going forward. Some of the key accomplishments, what we've done. We did a door-to-door smoke alarm campaign where we targeted the most at-risk communities in town, targeted 920 addresses, and we installed 130 smoke alarms and replaced 49 batteries. And apart from that door-to-door activations, when our fire crews are on scene at incidents, maybe medical related or public assistance calls, and when the time is appropriate, they will verify if people have working smoke alarms as part of their response as well. So we started tracking this in June of this year, so a half year, and we installed 36 new smoke alarms at other related incidents, so at medical incidents. Our fire crews also trained all city staff in bystander CPR this year. And at Camp Courage, which was a 2-day event put on in conjunction with RCMP and police, and fire, our staff trained the attendees in bystander CPR. Some of the other outreach our crews have done, they did 158 public relations events, which include the Fire Smart. So when the wildfires were going on, we were up at the parks providing fire safety information, school tours. We engaged 2,400 people there. Fire station tours, schools, everybody likes to come and visit the fire station, and participate in special events. And I'd just like to say that really during any of these events, our crews remain in service. Because being able to respond to an incident is a priority for us. We sent whole bunch. We sent 12 firefighters to the interior for the city last year, and we submitted to the province, and I just received confirmation today that we had, through our claims, we received an extra funding of over $50,000 that went back into the city assets, and that's really for an all-found rate for the province. It helps to counteract some of the depreciation on the apparatus and overtime rates for crews. Our Central Island Firecom, our dispatch for the Regional District of Nanaimo, Cowichan Valley, and City of Nanaimo also saw a 38% increase in dispatch incidents in the last 5 years. They're dispatching nearly 15,000 incidents. Our department, between our fire prevention staff and our on-duty firefighters, conducted over 2,500 different types of inspections, so fire life safety inspections, code compliance inspections, hoarding inspections last year. Emergency planning is now back under the fire umbrella. It wasn't in 2017, but I'll report on what they've done. They had 25 call-outs, including 117 adult evacuees, 24 children, 15 pets. And they've done courses and trainings through all of that, as well as continuing to do public education 2 to 3 a month. They were vital in our business continuity plan. They also had city staff and volunteers deployed to the interior wildfires, and they assisted them in Nanaimo, the ones that were brought down here as well. And they upgraded or enhanced our ham communications on the north end of Nanaimo this year. So second to last slide for you. Some of our current pressures going forward. Obviously, we're going to continue with the overdose responses. It's an issue everywhere. Nanaimo is no different than any other city. Mental health in the community, which we heard from Superintendent Miller. Occupational stress injuries for our first responders. A lot of that has to do with the types of calls and the number of calls they're going to. Our increased calls for service, maintaining our response objectives and resourcing. As always, that's expected. And our compliance through WorkSafe, obviously regulations and everything else requiring a lot more adherence to cleaning of our gear and testing of our gear and training going forward. And that was 2017. So if there's any follow-up questions, I'll see if I can answer them for you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. 2 questions for you, please, Chief Fry. Number 1, has there been any fentanyl exposures to the fire personnel during the crisis this last 2 years?
There have been no exposures where we have had to self-administer, no.
Okay, thank you. Second question, when you're referring to the operational stress injuries, is there a plan in place if the numbers get too high?
So this year, part of our strategy is we are doing resiliency training. We're participating in that in April for all of our staff. You know, it's covered under WorkSafe a lot of the times nowadays. So we are trying to provide our staff with the education and resources available for identifying the occupational stress injuries and building resiliency around that. And then as well, the city has excellent coverage through our support.
Follow-up, if I may, through you. My question still though remains, though, if we do have a situation where we're down a certain number, which can happen, I'm sure, as you know, we just need something extremely bad. Is there a plan for to maintain our numbers?
At this point, we would call back and staff back at overtime.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you to Chief Fry. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative. Just a couple of questions and some follow-ups. I think the first one with regards to the 6-minute response time. Can you tell me what areas are lacking? Because I know that you broke them down by the fire station numbers. So who is making that target, 90% of the time? Who isn't making that target? I think we got that number last year, if I wasn't mistaken, on who was close. So I was wondering if we had that number this year as well.
So probably the areas that are identified back on the map, I'm going to go back here quickly so I don't know how to go any slower. So this map, the blue areas are what identified as projected areas where crews should be able to meet a 6-minute response time from the station. So that's projected. As far as actual responses, it really depends on each individual response based on time of day and where they are when the response or when the incident comes in. The circled areas of Hammond Bay, Jinglepot, Westwood, and Duke Point, those would not be within the first 6-minute response area, but at times, if our crews are out anywhere near any of the peripherals, they may arrive there within 6 minutes. So it's a case by case, and we're only at 78% across the city.
Okay, so we don't actually have numbers based on those areas, because my question is, how close are we to those red zones I know that you said you can't meet them, but it'd be good if we actually had numbers to see if we actually did meet those numbers. And then a follow-up with regards to the same question, what are our 7-minute response times at? I know that we strive for 6, but what about 7? Are we there at 94% of the time, 100% of the time? Do we have a goal for that?
I do not have those answers right now. I do know that we do report on arrival of a first alarm assignment, which is 3 engines for a structure fire within 10 minutes. We are within the performance metrics for that standard. I can always report back on the 7-minute response time.
Great, thank you, because it was just a follow-up that 6 minutes was something that is not a standard, it's just something that council wished.
NFPA has a standard of 6-minute response under 1721.
Okay, so do most municipalities shoot for that target as well?
Correct.
How do we compare to those municipalities?
Well, it would I can't speak for any of the other municipalities at this point in time, but we could always do a comparison, see where others are standing on it.
That would be great. And then just to follow up on, this is another question that I have with regards to when council made the decision to go with 4 members per engine, I thought we did that to try to reduce overtime. That was what we were told from the fire chief. So have we achieved any of that by saving money on overtime?
I don't believe that you would reduce any overtime by having a minimum staffing of 16 or 4-member engines. So I'm unsure as to that. I think that might have been, I believe they thought it was going to cost an extra $75,000 a year.
Yeah, I think the conversation was, I just wanted to update Cheryl Armstrong or Councilor Armstrong that it was, the reason we did it, what we were told, was it would reduce overtime. So maybe I'll get the city clerk to look at some of that information. And then last question, I know that municipalities and fire departments throughout the country actually charge the insurance companies for calls. So we get reimbursed, so it doesn't fall on the city. Do we have a mechanism, or can we do that and charge insurance companies for calls for fire services?
So you are exactly correct. Many municipalities and through insurance, if there is a fire, you can charge back for a fire investigation fee.
And do we do that?
We currently do not do that, but we will be looking at that when we update our bylaw and present it to council.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Chief Fry. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you also to the work that you and your crews do. I think our community is very well served, and we appreciate that. I do have a couple of questions. One, Councillor Armstrong, I think, partially asked, it had to do with the occupational stress injuries. I just simply wanted to know if you've noticed a marked increase in those in the last couple of years or since your tenure began even. Is that something which is an increasing problem?
Correct. It's not only here, it's across North America right now, and we're seeing it not only in firefighters, but also in police and paramedics across the country. And I know there is federal legislation that is going forward with that as well.
And thank you. And secondly, the increase in incidents over the past 5 years, you indicated 38%. And I'm assuming that that includes both health-related and fire incidents. Is one increasing more than the other? Is it more of a health incident increase due to the drug problems?
Correct. The majority of the increase, since 68% of our calls are medical related, are any changes to the increase in first responder calls primarily. Fire calls, while they are increasing, they are not increasing at the same level as what the medical responses are.
Okay, thank you. And if I may, one more, Chair. I really appreciate the proactive work that the department does in terms of education in the community, being at events, and also the smoke alarm checking. And I think I mentioned this to you once before casually, Chief Fry, but I had a conversation with somebody who had been in California in a community where they had a bylaw which required that any time a property was listed and sold, there had to be an inspection and there had to be a working smoke alarm in that unit or that residence. And that would require bylaw and so on. But I'm just wondering if you think that's something that we could look at if we wish to in this community.
Most definitely. I know provincially, I sat on a committee a few years ago on working smoke alarms, and we were trying to work with the Real Estate Board of BC to include that as one of their requirements and checklists, but it is definitely something we would be able to look at here as well.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So I had a question for you, and that is, I attended an event, a conference, a one-day conference here in Nanaimo for first responders that was held in this building, actually. And it was really quite frightening to see, for me anyway, the number of fire personnel and police who were terribly disturbed in Vancouver with the number of calls they were getting. And I know it's different all over, but one of the things that they were suggesting in Vancouver is that because of all the calls downtown, east side, that as their day progressed, backfill started to follow in behind it. And they were suggesting that if you found yourself with an incident at the perimeter of the community, you better look out, because your response time is going to be significantly sacrificed by the fact that everybody's backfilling. For the benefit of the public, can you help me understand what our backfill for Station 1 is, how that works?
Yes, so prior to me becoming the fire chief, if we had extra staffing, sometimes we have 16 on duty, but sometimes we have 18 or 19 or even more. Any additional staffing was stationed at Station 2. And as I saw earlier on this slide, Station 2 only responds to, well, not only, but does respond to just over 2,000 incidents a year. So having a second apparatus run out of that station really doesn't have the same value as having it out of Station 1. So when we do have extra staffing, they are now staffed out of Station 1, and we can run 2 units out of Station 1. So a 2-member rescue unit, which is the first one out to medical type of incidents, and then be backed up by the career 4-member engine. Apart from that, if engine 1 is tied up, we have collapsing in from Station 4 and Station 2 to get the other calls.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I just was thinking about it, some in the audience may not know what an operational stress injury is, and that's the mental health and mental well-being. So just wanted to clarify that in case people were wondering what we were talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no further questions for you. Thank you very much for your presentation. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council. Mr. Michael Ribsick. Thank you. Chair of the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council to provide a presentation regarding transit issues affecting youth. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. So just to go over a few things here. For those of you that don't know, the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council was established in 2014 as the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. Members are between the age of 15 to 24 with one council representative, which is Councillor Hong. And so this year is our first year with a strategic priorities, so a plan. And what we have is we have youth poverty, event participation, and transportation as our main issues. So with transportation, that's probably been one of our main focuses as of late. We do our best to stay engaged with transit issues by attending open houses and whatnot from the RDN and BC Transit. So at our regular meeting this past month on February 21st, we invited representatives from School District 68, from all the high schools in the Nanaimo area, from their student council reps. And we also invited the Nanaimo Aboriginal Centre Youth Advisory Council and Vancouver Island University Students' Union to discuss what their priorities would be for improving public transportation from a youth perspective kind of thing. So from this input, we've identified 3 priority areas for suggested improvement. So increased bus frequency and capacity. So more buses are needed at high schools during peak after-school hours. Better connections required between the most popular bus routes and buses that service high schools should be scheduled to provide a reasonable amount of time between the end of class and when the bus departs. So for example, if your school is just ending at 3:05, or sorry, ends at 3 o'clock, and the bus comes at 3:05, how many of their students are actually ready to go on that bus? Probably not too many, and that seems to be a problem that's been occurring. The most frequently cited routes for more service are the number 40 and the number 15. So that's kind of the NDSS. And number 50 and number 7, which affect a lot of people that go to Barsby. So another issue that came up was safety at bus stops. NDSS students reported feeling unsafe during loading and unloading, as the overcrowding issue has led to people being pushed out into the street. It's a really evident thing every time you drive by there around the 3 o'clock time frame. It's probably due to the Woodland Secondary closing. There's more students down there and more people taking transit in that area. There's also insufficient lighting at some bus stops. So this came up a few times as well. So students reported that buses sometimes did not stop because they were not seen, then waiting an hour plus or more for the next bus. They also felt a little bit unsafe in some scenarios if there's just no lighting at a bus stop. So another thing we have is suggestions for modified routes. So extended bus services to 10th Street. This came up surprisingly several times, and it's actually part of the RDN's future plans. So we would encourage that to be a priority. Consider expanding connections between VIU and John Barsby High School and the rest of the South End. So for example, east-west on 7th Street. And consider expanded services in areas of North Nanaimo with very limited service. For example, Lindley Valley, which really has no services in that area. So bring forth a requested motion, and that motion is that council support the Nanaimo Youth Advisory Council attending the Regional District of Nanaimo's Transit Select Committee for the purpose of presenting identified priorities of youth for public transportation improvements. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the delegation? I have one for you, and that was, did you cover at all holiday bus service?
Holiday bus services?
Holiday bus service, and the reason I ask that is because some of the retail outlets, such as Canadian Tire, they are open on holidays, and they have great difficulty getting their staff to and from work, and younger people actually miss shifts because they don't, there's no bus service.
Right. That did come up, I believe, at least once. And it wasn't necessarily identified as one of the main 3, but it's definitely, it is a problem for sure, because a lot of places are only, will be open 2 less hours instead, which isn't really a big difference. So with the transit lacking on those days, it does create a problem. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the hugest or the biggest problem, but it definitely is one that was identified as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Thorpe has a question for you.
Yes, quickly, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Michael, for the work that your group has done on this, and I'll certainly support your suggested motion. I was going to ask if you intended to go to the RDN. I was speaking last week with an exchange high school student from Hungary who was here and thought, rather naively, that he could bicycle everywhere, as he did in his home country, and quickly found out when he went to go up Turner Road or Uplands Hill that he better get a bus pass. And he did that and used it a lot during his stay here. So I think transportation is very important to young people and school-age students. And so it's a lens that we need to be well aware of. So again, thank you for your work, and if I can forward your motion, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as we said, so we will be presenting to the BC Transit Select Committee. We're also meeting with someone from the RDN this Friday as well, a staff member from there. And so yeah, we are trying to coordinate the best we can.
Good.
Thank you. Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Just wondering when one should make that motion after the delegation?
Yes.
First of all, thank you, Michael, for always championing and presenting. So I want to state as being back in the day in high school and junior high, I was back in the era of junior highs, and the best experiences growing up were riding the bus. So we got to make it better for these students. You should have seen the bus route from Barsby down to the res every day. It was a big, out-of-control mayhem scene, but it was fun. So definitely in support of the bus route. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Michael, for presenting. I know it was an interesting discussion when we had this. If anybody drives by Wakasaya when NDSS lets out, it's like that. It's really dangerous. I'm happy that the city put in the sidewalks, but they're not wide enough. What do you think the options should be to actually make that part of the road safer? Railings, or do you think extension of the sidewalk? Did you guys figure that out?
Yeah, I believe that putting railings, that crossed my mind as well. We kind of discussed that, but at the same time, it could also be a bit of a burden, a bit of a hassle. I think it'd be more appropriate to perhaps somehow cement a bit more, because I'm pretty sure that's city property just behind the bus stop as well. So perhaps adding a bit more of a widened sidewalk would be the more appropriate route to go. It's definitely worth exploring through the city's lens there and just seeing what they can kind of do to coordinate that. I mean, obviously it's difficult to get people to line up formally as well, but something needs to kind of be done with that as well. And I say maybe if it was widened, it would encourage people to kind of stay more this way than it would going that way onto the road or whatnot.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would suggest we wait for other business for any motions arising. Councillor Armstrong.
Just a question on what you just finished saying there. Have you approached School District 68 on this as well, since they obviously have a stake in it? And I believe part of that property would belong to School District 68?
Mm-hmm. Not yet. That is a great suggestion though as well, and we were recently informed about that idea too. So I think we will be approaching them as well. The one problem though with the particular bus stop though is it's across the street from NDSS, like at that school particular. So I just don't think that the school district owns that part of it. However, perhaps there's ways to get around something with their efforts, or at least they can maybe try to coordinate someone to help keep people more safe there as well. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further questions. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is under 9, and that's the first one. There's two delegations. First one is Allison Evans. Is Ms. Evans here? Thank you. So we'll need your name and address, please, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name's Allison. I live in Nanaimo. I'd rather not give my address on here.
Go ahead.
So some of you may remember me from a previous delegation in regards to a needle incident with my 9-year-old daughter at Comox Park. I'm here today and joined by several people who represent many parents from our school community to speak about the city-owned Comox Park that is used by our school, École Pauline Hare, as their playground. Many people do not realize that Pauline Hare has the unique situation of having a city-owned park as their playground. This leads us to having the unique problem of funding needing to come from the city as well as the school board. First, I would like to start by saying that we are not against helping our city's homeless, drug-addicted, or transient population, much to the opposite. I also believe that, in my opinion, the root of our situation at Comox Park isn't people sleeping in the area, but the trouble is more with the severely drug-addicted who are not in their normal frame of mind. I would love to see more programs and care for the city of our people for the people of our city who are looking to improve their lives and are struggling because of the lack of affordable housing and lack of mental health care. It is a situation that demands compassion from the public, and I am extremely open to finding ways to help. I just do not think that this type of help or tolerance should happen on properties that are used by children on an ongoing basis. While we don't want to just move people along without helping them, there must be some areas of sanctuary for children. A playground should be for playing and learning and carefree fun with friends and enjoying the outdoors. This should be a right for children, and while we need to protect the rights of adults who need our voices as well, we cannot forget that we also need to be the voice for the children who have barely started out their journey in growing and learning about the world. I wish that I was here today asking for some of the things that we would like to see happen on the property at Comox Park. Things like a new surface to replace the wood chips under the play structures, fencing off the property of the Scout Hut, where the city spends a fortune maintaining a property that I've been told isn't even theirs, and upgrading lighting, to name a few. But there are two basic things happening that require ongoing attention and have proven to be highly effective over the last couple of months that are at risk of being dialed back, and they need to continue. So instead of asking for the many things that we feel would ensure safety in the playground, we are here asking for some of the basics to just continue. One, we understand that the current nightly security patrols at École Pauline Hare and Comox Park are at risk of being cut because the school board no longer has the funds and has taken on the brunt of the responsibility. The city has piggybacked off the school board in paying a small portion of the security costs to add on a patrol of Comox Park at the same time as when they patrol the school property. Everyone agrees that there has been an infinite improvement in reducing the amounts of paraphernalia, feces, vomit, condoms, needles, and garbage that need to be cleaned up each morning before 200+ children aged 4 to 12 come to class to learn. These patrols and the coordination with the school board simply need to continue. We request City Council to continue this essential funding. 2, morning sweeps of the grounds. We were told last week by the parks manager that the highly successful morning cleanup routine will be dialed back during the spring season as staff need to attend to spring gardening until the end of June. The nightly security makes these morning sweeps very efficient, but they are still necessary. These sweeps include picking up much more than just needles. We request that funding for morning sweeps continue at the city-owned Comox Park to ensure the safety of these children. If you do not address these issues, we will find our city-owned park playground back in complete disarray. There are real dangers with a lack of attention to this issue, dangers that affect children. And the last time I was here, I heard a lot about the fact that housing was a major factor in moving forward and helping people. I know that City Council was put in a tough
Need you to wrap
predicament
up, ma'am.
regarding the Chase River housing units, but if you're going to turn away solutions, then you need to be prepared to step up and make a difference in the ramifications of leaving the homeless and drug addicted out on the street. I wish that I could come here and have some great ideas on how to be compassionate and help people. It is something I live my life trying to always do, but this problem is huge and the solutions are multifaceted and will take time. The fact of the matter is that in the meantime, we need to protect our children, and these two requests will go a long way in doing so.
Thank you. Any questions for the delegation? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you for your presentation once again. I know that you presented also at Public Safety. We are going to make one of our issues in our strategic plan. It is coming up. I have confirmed with city staff that that's correct, that the needle sweep will not be happening every day due to capacity issues, that they are going to have to be doing, mowing, et cetera. I spoke briefly with our bylaws today, and we have a couple ideas that we're going to look at that we want to bring to public safety, and then it will come back to council. So there are a couple of things that we are trying to look at. So I know, and you're right, it is going to take some time. Funding is a huge issue, and that's something we have to look
But
at.
in the meantime, we've got kids going to school every single day, so what are we going to do between now and then?
Yeah, that's something that's going to have to come to council, and we'll have to make some decisions. Thank you.
With all due respect, this is my second time here, second time at a Public Safety Committee meeting, and I don't know how much longer, like, we're going to allow the kids to be put in this situation.
Follow up? One of the concerns, like we said, we have been paying for helping out pay. School district is in the same as we are. There's just no money. So we have to start looking at where we can find money, and which means we cut out other priorities as well. So we're going to have to really sit down and look at that. I do know that we are at a capacity issue. I don't know if people are aware that we do only have 11 bylaw officers for the entire city. So again, that they need to prioritize where they are,
But
what
so
they're
you're
doing.
saying that making sure that there's gardens and flowers comes above cleaning up needles and feces
Well,
and...
part of the problem with that is if we don't do that, then that becomes a hazard as well from fires. Again, then the stuff stays there hidden. We're going to, so it's a huge complex issue that it's going to take a lot longer to solve than just around this table. And we're going to need some more support from the province and the federal government as well.
So back in January, that was your answer to me as well, and it's March.
Yeah, it's probably going to keep being my answer until we can find dollars. Like, that's part of the big problem.
So how do we go about finding those dollars then?
I'm going to open up.
Because it doesn't seem to be happening.
I mean, we have competing priorities on that. It's the same thing the downtown business people want to continue their securities plan. Like, it's not just this area, it's all over.
The downtown business area doesn't have children in kindergarten to grade 7 trying to just go to school and learn. So the priority, I think, needs to be on these kids.
Thank you. I'll let some other councillors speak.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. Thank you for coming again and addressing council. Through the chair, will staff be joining us to respond to any questions once the delegation leaves the podium?
I would suggest we bring that up under the other business.
Thank you. You made a couple of statements, and I'd just like to address them. You indicated that the school district has advised you that they are dialing back on the nightly security. Is that
It's
confirmed?
been told to me that they don't have any more funding. They've put a lot of money into other aspects of the school security and things as well, so, but what I'm here mainly for is dealing with Comox Park. I don't want to confuse the issue by talking about the actual school grounds and the school board, because they have done a lot in respect to the school. It's Comox Park that I'm here more mainly about. So if the school board doesn't continue with the security of the school, will you continue with the security at the playground at the Comox Park?
Thank you for that clarification. My second question, if I may, was you also indicated that the city has advised you that the morning sweep
Yes, and Cheryl just
Pat,
confirmed that as well.
program will be dialed back.
Yes,
So
in order to do gardening.
yeah, I'm not privy to or aware of what the reprioritization of the resources.
I am, that's what
Yeah.
they've said.
So I'm just trying, that's what I'm trying to do is just clarify what dialing back is in the evenings by the school board from a security perspective, what dialing back is from the Parks Department on the morning sweeps. I heard bylaw enforcement come up as only having 11, but I don't believe that bylaw enforcement, to my knowledge, is a part of the sweep or of the cleanup or going out and cleaning. They may be, but I don't know that they are. So at the end of the day, reprioritization of what can be done with a joint use, because we do have, to my knowledge, a joint use committee made up of staff members from the school board and the city. And I don't have any reports or notes from any of those most recent meetings since you were here last to be able to adequately provide any more information than you already have. You have probably more information right now about what may happen.
I know I do.
Than I have.
That's the problem.
So, yes, and I don't disagree with you, and that's what, again, that's why I'm asking the questions in the manner in which I am. And I don't know what amount of money is necessary between the two principal organizations, the school board and the city.
How about though, like without thinking about the school board, because I know that's like a go-to that you guys do. So how about without anything to do with the school board, let's talk about Comox Park and what the city is going to do for Comox Park.
Right, and if you allow me to finish, so I'm not clear on what the amount of monies is required to maintain and continue the sweep that we're doing, how we might be able to complement the lack of monies that are available through the school board to do the security in the evenings that you would wish for us to undertake, potentially, or portions thereof. So I don't have that information. And without that information, we can talk and talk and talk, and we're going to have another committee meeting, and we're going to do another one of those, and we're going to do this, and we're
So
going to do
how
that.
do we get to the bottom of that then?
So just a moment, Councillor. The clerk wishes to step in.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Bestwick. Just to cut in, I just wanted to remind the delegation and council that it's not to be a debate right now. My other understanding is that the Public Safety Committee, the staff liaison, will be working on a report with recommendations to bring to council. So you will have the information that you're looking for, because you're right, you don't have the information that she's speaking of or all of the answers on priorities or where this is at, and that needs to be brought to council's table so that you can make an informed decision. But I just ultimately wanted, when a delegation is here, it's not supposed to get into a debate, so you're supposed to answer the questions, but not really argue. So, thank you.
Okay.
If I might, if I had the floor, I'm certainly not arguing whatsoever with the delegation. I'm simply trying to extract the information by which that I might be in a better position to provide an adequate response, if and or when the time comes, to move and advance this matter forward. So there, under no circumstances am I arguing with the delegation. In fact, I'm agreeing with the delegation. I'm trying to support the delegation's requests for how we as a city may be able to administer the playground adequately to meet the needs of the 200-plus kids that are there and the parents and so on and so forth, and how we might be able to direct staff in order to achieve that outcome. And without the information to know if we need 5,000, 10,000, 25,000, or whatever that number is, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to money. So I am not arguing. I'm trying to find a manner in which we could potentially find a resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
You mentioned that with the security of the playground area, that numbers of people frequenting it have decreased?
There's been, from what I know, I've spoken to all parties involved, including people that are sleeping there and Footprint Security and everybody else. And pretty much everyone agrees that it has decreased it significantly, and significantly decreased the amount of what is needing to be cleaned up, although it is still needing to have some cleanup, but it's much, much less than it was prior to the security.
Okay, well, you had mentioned earlier the problem wasn't people sleeping there, so I didn't even bring that part up. Through you to Mr. Britton, and this could answer a question, because what generally happens when you see a decrease of numbers there, those people are moving elsewhere. So just through the mayor to Mr. Britton, have you noticed an increase in anything down at Mothio Sutton Park, which would be the next most frequently park area type of thing?
Sorry, this one.
We got you covered.
There's a reason I'm asking.
First time.
There's a reason I'm asking.
No, Mafia Sutton Park has its issues unto itself. A lot of the transients go, there's 10 hotspots that we generally look at overall that we're finding needles on a consistent basis in. Pauline Hare has been addressed a lot because of the fact that it's a school next to a playground, and we've done a lot of work to try and mitigate the factors there. Has it worked? Obviously not. It's worked to a point. They're dispersing, they're going all over the place. I don't have a clear direction of where they are going, so.
Okay. Thank you. And that's part of the problem. We don't have those clear understanding. The clear understanding is that this is a huge problem throughout the city. Pauline Herrera is one place. Deverell Park in the south end was frequently mentioned prior to Pauline Herrera. That park is used so frequently now that there's less and less traffic in that area. And part of the problem, yes, is the homeless, not having housing. But that's just part of the problem. Did you know that there have only been 5 detox beds put up on Vancouver Island in the last 4 years? That's 5.
And I understand
which
that.
helps.
There's
No, I'm just
also
asking.
housing that's being
Yeah.
turned away.
Well, no, the housing wasn't turned away. The
Well,
housing
it's
did
not
not
happening,
get
so
turned
however
away.
that came about.
Okay, we're getting off track here, so
This is all
we can
about.
just finish this up.
It's all about communication with people and how we communicate, and that goes to the back and forth with yourself. So there's a lot of misinformation out there on a lot of stuff, and hopefully John Howard Society does some cleanups, maybe a phone call to them and asking them if they would be able to shift their areas of doing it to maybe doing the playground area first instead of last, if that's the way they do it. Because I know they're out there almost on a daily basis doing that, so.
Thank you very much. Councillor Yocum.
Thank you again, and I totally sympathize, and when we get this report, I'm definitely in favor of, if we gotta reprioritize, I hear you, if we gotta reprioritize of the children's, whether it's this park or any park, we gotta do sweeps. And I look forward to that conversation, because we gotta, and I agree, I'd rather have needle-free fields for kids to tear around than pretty flowers. I totally get that. So I just want to share my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I need to remind you, this is a business meeting. Ma'am, thank you very much. I see no further questions for you. So the next delegation is Mr. Matthew O'Donnell.
Good evening. My name is Matthew O'Donnell. I'm joined here by some members of the community. They'll introduce themselves in a couple of seconds. We're just here to address council today. In case you're not aware, we are a group of citizens who have decided with the homeless community, in light of what the news of last week, where $7 million basically, we turned down the spot in Chase River for whatever reason. $7 million went to another community, fair enough. We've decided that we as a community need to come together and we need to do something about this issue, or at least bring it to the forefront. And so we set up a tent city right in the front lawn of City Hall. This issue has been affecting multiple communities. and it's been affecting our front lawns and our backyards for quite some time. So we're bringing the issue now to City Council's front lawn. We're asking for urgent action on these issues. A couple of points that we made, for example, the $7 million, that site in Chase River, it was rejected for whatever reason. We've been there, we've talked about that. So now we need to look at a new location. We need to find a new location. We've been hearing a lot about second rounds of funding coming from the province. We want to know, when we can get in on that funding. When will that process start? And we would like actual specific answers with hopefully timelines as well. Another concern that we had, at the safe injection site on Wesley Street, right now it allows for safe injection of drugs. However, overdoses and overdose deaths are happening due to snorting and, inhaling as well. So with that said, we need a VHA-approved safe consumption site. And that can only happen if they have a permanent location. This is where City Council comes into play. We need Council to move now on making sure that that is available for the people who need it in this community. Another thing that we really need, or this community really needs, is a drop-in center, somewhere where they can go, or they can put their belongings. Or great start with opening up those showers, but maybe they can storage area for them to put their stuff, or just to sit down and know that they're welcomed and they're a part of the community. And those are basically what we're looking for now, and I won't waste any more time, and I'll introduce these people here.
Good evening, Council, Your Worship. My name is Kevin Donaghy. I work for an organization called SOLID, which is the Society of Living Intravenous Drug Users. We have groups of volunteers in the community who identify as drug users and people with lived experience, going out and cleaning up the community, doing needle exchange, distributing harm reduction supplies, both in the morning and in the evenings, 3 times a week. It's a pilot project, and I guess right now too, I'm hoping that we might be able to kind of pitch the idea to City Council that for the idea of the needle cleanup issues, this is something that we'd be interested in working on with you. But to the point about the housing issue, homelessness and people in Nanaimo who are homeless come up as an issue almost all the time at these council meetings. The issue of homelessness. Well, the solution to the problem that City Council identifies as homelessness is housing, right? And the ball was really dropped on the Chase River supportive housing project. So as Matt has said here too, we're hoping that this action at City Hall today will result in bringing it back to the drawing board again and making it one of the top priority issues for the city. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. So just to wrap it up here quickly, we're basically what we're asking for the City Council is to finally let's see some action, please. Not just talking. Let's see some commitments, and hopefully we can get some movement happening here. What you're seeing in the front lawn of City Hall is a very, very small percentage of a massive issue that's happening here in Nanaimo. We have a homeless crisis here. We have a opiate crisis here. And while they are 2 separate issues, they are very much connected, and they very well affect each other, as well as mental health. They're all connected. So please, let's just find some action here, and let's actually do something and give this community, the homeless community, something that they can be confident in with this council. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Before you go away, we've got some questions. Mr. O'Donnell, Matthew, we've got questions for you. Councillor Fuller.
Just curious, you mentioned an overdose protection site, which we already have. They want a safe injection site. Are you advocating for only one in the community?
Personally, I would be advocating for as many safe consumption sites as we need to make sure that people aren't overdosing and dying.
Thank you. Thank you. Someone that agrees.
We could have a volunteer run too.
A pure run site, like a pure run overdose prevention site is key. Like the whole service provision model, it needs to be flipped on its head. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'd love to see a lot of things flipped on their head. With regards to the modular housing, what we lost was the modular housing valued at $7 million. It's a great initiative, and I believe there will be a second round, and hopefully we will get it again, because I watched a thing about a place in London where they're putting this, and it's going to be moved in 5 years. So you could actually move that 5 times. It's great stuff, and hopefully we will get there. We do have an affordable housing strategy that we're working on, comprehensible. because it's not just the homeless, it's people with low-income wages that are hugely at risk of homeless. The site out at Chase River would have housed 44 people, 6 of them. I'm just getting back and forth. 6 of them would have been the most hard to house, only 6 of them. Others, we were hoping to get out of some of the supportive housing buildings and move them into that housing. And then that would have opened up spaces to bring other people into as well. So it's the whole housing continuum it's huge. It's not just Nanaimo, it's all over the place. Why we were only given till the end of 2018, I don't know, because other communities have been given till the end of 2019. So let's get on the province as well. It's not just municipalities, it's the province and the feds. There is work happening with regards to a drop-in center through the Coalition on Homelessness. They're looking at options for that right now. So hopefully we'll get there. Thank you kindly.
Councillor Holland.
Thank you. Just, I guess, a couple of questions and a couple of comments. You mentioned that you have a needle cleanup program. So I know that we have parents here from Pauline Herrer, which is probably the first that they've heard that there is an organization that is willing to do a needle cleanup program. So my question to you is, are you willing to work with Parks and Rec, I guess is who is in charge, to help with cleanups of schools and parks like Pauline Herrer? Is that what you're offering to us tonight?
A contingent upon our ability to fund that program. Right now, we're operating on a $10,000 budget for a 3-month pilot project.
And what are you doing? Like, I'd like some more information about that, actually. Like $10,000 for 3 months, what have you done with that? Or what area have you focused on? And how many needles have you picked up? I guess some information would be great. And then to connect with our staff, and the safety chair, I guess, is where it would logically go to help Pauline Herrer for if our parks department are good and we can fund this from our housing issue, we can get you guys to do the needle cleanups. And that would alleviate a lot of the issues that Pauline Herrer has come to us and asked for. Is that correct?
I think that's true, yeah. It seems like a pretty, logical assumption to make. But I think bringing it back to the housing thing is incredibly important. When we're talking about the issue of, needle exchange and needle cleanup, that's definitely going to be an issue. It's going to be an ongoing issue. While people are using drugs intravenously, there's going to be syringes in our community to a certain degree. The fact is that by providing people with housing, well, A, it's a step towards people being able to address addiction in their own lives as individuals, correct? Like housing is an integral first step to people being able to address other issues in their life. And people who are using drugs in the streets of Nanaimo, they're not doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they have no choice. They have nowhere else to use them. And what people do in the privacy of their homes is none of our business. So if people choose to use drugs intravenously in the privacy of their homes, that's their right to do so. But if we don't want to see people using needles in Mateo Sutton Park or near the grounds of Pauline Herrer, we do need to provide them with housing. I think that's really the key issue, though.
Okay, but in the meantime that you guys can,
please, yeah,
which is great. I think the Pauline Herrer parents here would be happy to hear that. And then Matt, with regards to what you said you had support from the homeless people with regards to set up this tent. Are there any homeless people up there right now at City Hall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Because I just saw one at A&B Sound sleeping there. I was like, wow, why isn't that person up at City Hall when you guys set up a tent there?
Yeah, I tried. I actually woke her up and told her that she should go up there.
Yeah.
But I guess she's just really tired. But yeah, we're all up there.
Okay.
We've been there since this morning, and just
That's great.
Gonna make a difference or something.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't exactly sure as I just
Yeah.
was coming to this meeting that women's like sleeping outside of A&B Sound. I was like, well, I could
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
go
go
have some
after
tent.
this and go down around the library. I've seen a few people too. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Matt and company. I think we first met under a certain a circumstance similar to this several years ago. I have much respect for what you do. And I just have a couple of comments and a question. Social entrepreneurship. So that's basically what I've heard, that you're acting in a social entrepreneurial way with the funding that you've received to provide a needle cleanup within the city of Nanaimo in certain specific areas. And I just have to ask the question, if you have had any dialogue with our city staff in relation to complementing what we've been doing and complementing what you are doing. Has there been any integration between yourselves and our city staffs? Have you crossed paths saying, hey, what are you doing? Who are you? Are you guys just good citizens? Like, thanks for coming. Have you guys talked?
We have not. There has not been a discussion that's been initiated yet between city staff and this Peer Run project.
So
It's been operational for about just over 5 weeks now.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we're in the process of having those discussions, hopefully, or kind of trying to figure out how to do it. I assume like what this is essentially an opportunity to begin those discussions.
Thank you. So I'm assuming that this is a pilot project, as you indicated, and that once the 3 months of funding comes and goes, you will either be going back to that organization that's been funding you because you've been extremely successful, or there's more money there, or whatever. And in the meantime, I hope that you can connect with our staff so that we aren't becoming redundant, that we aren't doing same or similar places where there's need in elsewhere, so we get the best value, so that you aren't wasting your time, and our staff might be able to work with you guys to say, here's the schedule, here's how we're doing what we're doing and the hours that we're doing it. And to the delegation previously to you, that
I'd be happy to have those discussions and, just at a later date, because I do not want to downplay the importance of the action that's happening at City Hall today on the lawn. I really think the focus does have to be on housing, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that, because I would love to have those discussions. The needle exchange program and working with the city is very important to me, but I don't want to hijack the opportunity to really, to put the importance on the
Thank you.
on the issue.
And again, I'll go back to what I had on the last conversation. I'm not arguing with anybody. This is a COW meeting. This is a committee of the whole meeting where it used to be a little less formal, and we could have these conversations and say, hey, you need to talk to that guy right over there. And that guy right over there has got to talk to you. And you guys can't work in silos, not that you're intending to. We have to work together, because one organization, one group, one city isn't going to solve this problem all by itself. So if everybody isn't talking, if everybody isn't working together, and we recognize that there's various layers of the problem, of which one is housing, I completely understand that. And so I'll get to my question about housing. How long do you intend, Matt, to have the awareness program on our front lawn?
Essentially, until we see action and movement on the requests that we have made. Hopefully that can happen relatively quickly. But at the same time, we need to know that we're moving in the right direction at a very urgent pace. And as soon as we have that, we can talk with our people, and I'm sure we can come up with some sort of resolution.
And just then finally,
But we need movement first.
You've seen government at work. You've seen January, the gal came from
I-
Pauline Hare, and here we are in March, and we're going back to another committee meeting talking about more public safety assistance. And
Absolutely. I completely understand the snail's pace that all levels of government works at, but at the same time, as you're aware, sometimes social disobedience and civil action can make the government work relatively quicker. So we're hoping that it comes down to that.
Thank you. So last question, and maybe Mr. Fuller knows the answer. I don't know, maybe staff know the answer. Do we know how many, so I've participated in the past on homeless counts. And and we've made some improvements despite where we are today, and the rapid response and all of that. Do we have a current homeless count in the city of Nanaimo today?
First, I'll just let you know that we're being very respectful out there, not leaving garbage and, being quiet, but that was my project. I've got to go in. I started a head count a couple days ago, so this has all just been in a couple days, but I'm still working on that.
Can you give me any preliminary numbers?
About a couple hundred, I don't know, you might know.
I've from people I've spoken to, I've heard over 500 roughly. That's how large the population's grown, spread out over across the entire city. There's homeless encampments in the north end we don't really hear too much about. There's homeless encampments in the south end, obviously. We have the downtown core. It could be higher than that too. That's just an estimate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
April 18th, there's going to be another homeless count, point-in-time count to figure out how many people there actually are. There's probably about 300 in the community, actually. It's not quite at 500 yet. Yet, I say. Question for each and every one of you there and your supporters out in the audience. Why were you not here when we were proposing to put the Chase River housing up? Did you guys just think it was going to be an automatic yes? Because I supported it and Councillor Brennan supported it. But that's part of the problem. People tend to make assumptions. And we've had other people come forward that have had a huge number of people that would have supported it as well. So the time to support it is when it's actually happening, not after the fact. After the fact is good, but during the fact is best.
Speaking, to answer your question, Councillor Fuller, and speaking selfishly and strictly for myself, the reason why I didn't come down speaking in support or whatever during that process was because, I actually personally was not in support of that particular address in Chase River due to transportation issues, but it does, just because I wasn't in support of that one particular location does not mean that we need to sidetrack the problem. I was expecting this council to come up with an alternative location at the exact same time that they rejected it. You know, you come up with a problem, you provide a solution. So that's what I was hopeful for. It didn't happen, and that's kind of why we're here now.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
I just want to reply to that, Matt. We were finding alternate solutions. We weren't given the opportunity. And I think it's really important for people to realize that during the whole process, it kept changing. We were told one thing, that, you know, it was going to be level 1 and level 2 only, which I totally supported, even for that location. I don't support level 3 in front of a school or a Boys and Girls Club. I don't, and I won't. I had no problems with a different location where it wasn't going to be in front of a school, and I think the majority of council felt that way, but we just sat here and heard parents talking about the issues that they're having, and I couldn't do it at that location. So we were all for finding an alternate location. That takes time, because we have to use city-owned properties, or if we have to sell them to buy property that's more suitable, we also have to go through a rezoning process. And I mean, and public engagement is very critical. Like, I think we'd be severely criticized for dropping this on with no public engagement. And I didn't find out about who even got the contract until the public engagement session. And that's when I found out that the service needs had changed. So I think the process, I think people don't understand, a lot of the information we were given at the time had changed. So that's why we were having those questions, and we did ask for time, weren't given it.
I can understand and appreciate that, but at the same time, I must state that, you know, from our end and from our perspective, or I'll just speak for myself, this is a human issue. I understand there's processes and bureaucracies and everything behind everything, but in the end, people are still dying, people are still overdosing, people still don't have anywhere to live. We have people in the community who are getting sick and tired of needles lying around their schools. I don't have any kids, but I'm a private citizen, and I'm sick and tired of hearing about needles around schools and children being at risk. But in the end, there's so many issues that need to be solved. We can talk about the schematics and why we can't do this, but in the end, humans are humans. We need to help these from a human level, and I know we can do it.
No one's disagreeing, but it takes all 3 levels of government to work together.
I know, but when it comes to time, we don't have time, though. But we can still do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to share with you before we wrap this, and that is an excerpt from the letter of March the 9th, which is Friday morning. This is from Selina Robinson, the Honourable Selina Robinson, Minister. And she says, "Please be assured that BC Housing values its partnership with Nanaimo and remains committed to working together to address homelessness in your community once you can identify an appropriate site." Budget 18 included funding to build 2,500 homes for the people struggling with homelessness over the next 10 years. Therefore, BC Housing will continue to discuss the potential opportunities for a rapid response to homelessness program in Nanaimo and the development of modular housing. So they have said, they've said quite clearly they remain committed to this project, and you know, we're gonna do our best to make sure that we find an appropriate site. I wanted to ask the clerk, this letter, can we make sure that this goes on to next week's council agenda as correspondence? Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. So, council, the next item is other business. Are there any, is there any business arising from any delegations? Councilor Yocum.
Yeah, I'd like to move the first young Michael's request for the Youth Advisory Committee for, to go to out to the RDN. I don't know the exact language, but it was in that realm.
Thank you. Do we have that, is it easy to bring that motion forward? Thank you.
That motion.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Moved by Councillor Yocum, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any other business arising from delegations? Councillor Yocum.
I don't know how to word this. I don't know if it actually needs to be a motion, but for yourself and staff to work with Mr. O'Donnell and have a resolve. And of course, staffs will work hard on the letter you just received, but just to sort of mitigate and get this resolved as soon as possible. I guess that's more just direction. Probably don't need a motion, do you?
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you'd like to see the mayor and staff move forward with this initiative and try to provide as many answers to Mr. O'Donnell and the principals of this group as soon as
Yeah,
possible?
the request we just heard.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Do we believe we've accurately captured the motion?
I think we can work with what you've said and what the request was and
Thank
word
you.
it properly.
Thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. There was a whole bunch of requests. The one I want to focus on is this needle cleanup program one is the key one. It seems like it's easy for Al to work with. Is that part of this motion as well?
I think everything we saw tonight.
So does this motion also include sending staff out to buy property for social housing, moving it forward? Because that's what this, because in order for us to solve their problem, we need property and we need to tell the provincial government that's what they're asking is they want housing. So we need to send staff out to buy us some property to put housing up is pretty much the gist of it.
I'm not sure if it's, we may have to option some property. We may have to option.
So the option is, so what we're doing is sending staff out to find a site. Is that what it is?
No.
Like that, it just seems like this, this motion is really too wide.
Let's have Mr. Lindsay answer that question.
Thank you.
Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Worship. I think just as a reminder, maybe as the council at the time when you addressed the Cranberry property, you did provide direction to staff to go look for alternative locations. So that work continues, and we hope to return to council in the near future. And that's why I don't think there's a requirement for a subsequent motion on that on the issue of alternative locations.
So what is this motion dealing with then? The staff are already pursuing that. So why do we need a motion other than the needle program, which I'm really interested in?
I think, Ms. Curry?
Thank you, Worship. My understanding of the motion was to work for staff to sit down with Mr. O'Donnell and the issues he's brought forward tonight, letting him know where we're going with the buying of the property, looking at other options for housing, needle pickup, and basically getting the tent city off of City Hall property and how we go about making that happen.
So, okay, well, I'll
Basically-
leave it at that.
Yeah, basically, sorry, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Hong, it's basically what I got from it is to sit down with staff and Mr. O'Donnell to sit down and try to mitigate some of these issues that they brought forward this evening.
But they're saying they're not leaving until we come up with a solution, is what I heard from them. And I don't have a problem with that. I'm just trying to figure out where we're supposed to go with this, so, but I have my say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just in regards to the needles in the living room, those are being dealt with through the public safety, so there's no need for that. That is happening. We're sitting down at the next one to do our strategic priorities, and that will be discussed. I've already spoken with Kevin previously to this, so there are different options that are being addressed for the pickup as well as with staff, et cetera. So that can stay with public safety if everybody's in agreement with that.
Well, if we want the camp to stay on our front lawn until you meet and then give recommendations to council, and then council votes on it, that'd be great, but I think we need to fast track this.
Well, I think a lot of solutions are already done, so we can put it forward to council next week.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you very much. To Councillor Hong's inquiry to staff, and Mr. Lindsay indicated to us that we have been, when I say we, staff has been working diligently to identify alternate sites during the process for the Cranberry siting of the modular home option initiative. And so I know that then that's why the motion seems redundant to me, because we're already, I think the information that Mr. Lindsay would pass on to Mr. O'Donnell is this is the direction that council provided us on our February the whatever to seek other options and alternate sites. Then I hear that we're having our public safety meeting, and I don't know when the next public safety meeting is, to do our strat plan for prioritizing what the public safety's priorities are. Then I'm hearing we're going to fast track so that we can mitigate the scenario going on at City Hall now. And then I hear about needles because, and since January, it's been a significant concern about the zone between Pauline Hare and Bowen Park and the Island Corridor Foundation piece by Caledonia Park and so on and so forth. And speaking with staff, there's hundreds of needles picked up in the same, every day. So I think that we need to direct our staff to meet swiftly with the school board. We are the two agencies that can deal with, so bylaw enforcement, park staff, public works staff, with the school board immediately. And the gentleman that was here representing, that is 5 weeks into a 12-week program about needle. So that's a separate issue all by itself. And I have no issue with us directing staff to meet with the school board and return to us by next Monday with how we're going to deal with that specific subject matter, so that we can tell people in our community that are identifying the problems for us and saying, what are you guys going to do about it? And I don't want to tell them we're going to wait 6 more weeks before we do, and they were here 6 weeks ago, if we're going to fast track things. So let's do it. So with all due respect, we need to have a motion that directs our staff to meet with the school board staff and any other third parties that are dealing with needle issues, period. And if we want to deal with sites for housing opportunities, then we direct staff to return within 2 weeks or less with alternates, period. And then we direct staff to find a location with a third party or the city or the school board or whoever it is for a bedroom. The drop-in centers, period. So we can have 3 different motions identifying 3 different things, so that, to Councillor Hong's point, this is pretty big web that we're trying to catch everything. So let's deal with one, and this isn't dealing with one-offs because they're all connected. So if we can deal with all 3 in the next 1 to 2 weeks, and I guess within 1 to 2 weeks we'll find out we couldn't deal with them. Good, at least we'll find that out. So if we don't have specific direction to staff, then we'll find ourselves extremely frustrated, and we'll be back here in 2 weeks, and the information might not change. The information we'll get might not change. So I would prefer that we hit it head on, all three of those things. Needles, property, the drop-in center, all three of them in separate motions. And then staff can go and task other staff to get it done. And if they can't get it done, then we can get a third-party person to help us get it done. Because this problem isn't going away until we do something, and we better do something before the summer. So those are just my comments. If you want to try to craft 3 motions out of those comments, great. And if not, then I'm happy to make 3 separate motions.
Thank you. Mr. Lindsay.
Your Worship, I think I had that request to speak on from earlier, but I would just, hopefully I'm not complicating the discussion any more than I need to, but just as a reminder for council, there's been a number of motions made around this topic, and it's a significant issue at more than just the Public Safety Committee, and I think, as an example, at your Finance and Audit Committee on Wednesday, and 2 days from now, you're going to receive a report that looks at social response issues, and this comes out of the direction you had last year when you considered the federally approved safe injection service on Wesley Street. You asked staff to go away and look at some options for a social response. So that report's coming forward on Wednesday, and it will have not all, but some of the issues that you're talking about here this evening included in that report, including options for funding.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
So we're already looking at properties. We're already looking for properties. That's being done. The Homeless Coalition is working on a drop-in center. Let's get it right. Let's not just open up a building and say, come on in, folk. You also need the supports there for the folk, which could involve solid. That's in the progress right now. Coordinated aspect around needles. Well, a coordinated aspect around anything is pretty hard to do in this community, but it's true. But that one can be done because it's not just John Howard, it's not just the school district, it's not just parks. Nanaimo Association for Community Living does it. Other groups do it. So if they can all get together, that would be great. Nothing is going to happen in the next week or two. That's a given. And then whatever does happen is going to require money. Now, there is money available for the drop-in center, which is why the Homeless Coalition is looking at it. The money is there, the funding is there, and they're working on that one. And that one we may actually have by summertime. Housing, it takes far longer than 2 months to build it, even if we did have the money to build it, the site to build it, and the housing provider. So it's all going to take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Throw more tents up on City Hall. Eventually it'll become like many of the other tent cities in the province that have had deaths on site, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get a porta potty for them tomorrow. And we can keep working at this and they can keep camping at City Hall. I don't have a problem with that. I set up a safe injection site at City Hall parking lot. So it may spur things on quicker, but it's not going to be next week or the week after.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't realize the motion that I attempted here was, sounds like it's going to get defeated, but nevertheless, it was expedite things, have someone from the mayor or someone from staff or both or whoever meet with Mr. O'Donnell, have a conversation happening where they can be a conversation happening. So it doesn't, I disagree with you, Gord, or Mr. Councillor Fuller. Like, I don't want this explode into a tent city.
Well, neither do I, but. Councillor.
So, no, and so nevertheless, so I think if we have conversations early, we can prevent that circumstance. Secondly, I believe there's a small window with the province to save this housing project from the letter you read and the language I heard in between. So that was the point of the motion, is basically get some action happening ASAP before this snowball is so out of control and we know it can overnight. That was my point. Thank you, Ms. Curry.
Ms. Curry?
Thank you, Worship. Just hearing everybody that's been speaking, as well as there is a motion on the floor that's been moved and seconded. We do have it basically worded to have the mayor and staff sit down with Mr. O'Donnell. And basically, I think what, from everything I'm hearing, is to just communicate with him everything that we are doing and the different actions that we are taking, and then try to expedite that as much as we can. All of the different motions and things staff are working on, try to get those going and sit down and have a conversation as to the actions we are trying to get done.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Oh, boy, thank you, Chair. I agree with a number of the comments that other councillors have made, and I disagree with some of them. And I think the intention of Councillor Yoakum's motion was good, but I'm not sure that it's necessary, because as we've heard, I think we have given staff direction on these different areas. They are looking for land. We're pursuing that. We're working on the needle problem, which we all acknowledge. And I think staff is clear on what we want them to try and come up with. And I think we've communicated that hopefully today to the listening and viewing audience. So whether a general motion today is necessary, I personally don't think so. And as far as the tent city, I'm sorry, but I'm not comfortable with feeling that I'm being held hostage to make quick decisions simply because some people want to set up tents on City Hall lawn. And I'm certainly not in favor of supplying them with conveniences. So we are making progress.
Sir.
So my point is, we are making progress on these issues. We recognize their importance, and we will continue to follow up with staff and look for good, solid solutions in a responsible way. So the bottom line is, I don't think the motion is necessary, but I appreciate its intent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I just wanted to concur, I will concur with Councillor Thorpe as well. I think it's important to know that Mr. Horn has been working on the living room for some time. There is a concept in place. We are going to be bringing it forward. The same thing with the needle stuff. I mean, if we're going to start making priorities for them, then we better retract some of the other priorities we've given them. So we need to really sit down and think about that if we're going to do that. And I echo the fact that, you know, yes, people are dying. They're dying in other communities as well. So the monies that we did lose, people are still going to survive because they're going to go to a different community, just not ours. So it's not like the opportunity was lost to save lives. It's just not in this particular community. Do I like it? No. But the reality is that at least the monies are still going to be available for another community, which still saves lives. The tent city, I think we all recognize that there's an issue with homelessness. I don't think there's one at this table that doesn't. Requires dollars, which we've talked about. And the dollars aren't going to come overnight. So if they are prepared to stay till we can get commitments from the government, then they'll probably be there a long time. Because the city of Nanaimo does not have the funding to build this building on its own. We have to have partnerships, and that's going to take time. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief, but with all due respect to all the speakers and all the issues and all the concerns, and they're all important and they're all critical pieces. I just don't understand, though, which motion is going to address us meeting with the school board to come to an understanding and an agreement and a consensus of how we're going to work together on Pauline Hare and Comox Road Park, and because I haven't heard that piece yet. And I need to know that that's going to happen. And I need to know that we're going to get a report that's going to come back to us to tell us how much money we need, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to money and how much money we're going to be able to allocate to not just this situation at this site, but potentially others as well. And maybe we have to reshift our priorities of where we were going to spend monies on certain things, because this is a crisis. Like, make no mistake about it, so it is. And I would happen to think that there's monies available out there if we just say, you know what, we're going to knock that one off the bottom. We don't need to do that this year. This is a little bit more important without having to go and find more money. The money's there. We just might have to shift our priorities a little bit in a crisis. That's what we're here for. That's what we're supposed to be trying to do. So if I don't hear that we're going to meet with the school board, if I don't hear that we're going to talk to them about how to address the situations there in Nickel Street, wherever else they are, that we're working together on, then I don't think it captures everything. When I hear that we're going to have a finance meeting on Wednesday morning, and we're going to talk about this, well, then it has to come back here anyways. We can, the committee, which is this council, that's what these COW meetings are for. We're going to talk on Wednesday morning about what we're going to bring back to this council. So if we want to try to take some proactive action, then we need to address it at these COW meetings every second weekend here without having to go back to another committee in order to bring it back here again. So I completely respect what Councillor Yoakum is attempting to do. To the points that have previously been made, we've already directed staff to do these things. And I've heard when we did the public task force, how do you want us to communicate with you? How do you want to communicate with us? And we've had 4 or 6 meetings on that. And so the neighborhoods want to be consulted. And here we did not consult with this. I'm not advocating for one or the other, whether there should have been modular homes there or not, housing there or not. But we didn't consult with the community. So we get railed every time we do something without consulting the community. We might even have 3 or 4 meetings, but only half a dozen people showed up. So we've got to do 3 or 4 more because now it's getting tighter timeline to make the decision. Everybody wants more consulting. So we didn't consult out there. That's why we didn't make the decision to put those monies to work on that site, because we didn't consult. So here we are. Let's do as much consulting as we need to do, but then be ready to make a decision and get all the information that we need to make the decision. And that's money. Thank you.
Okay, so I would suggest that we've actually got 2 motions here. One is Councillor Yoakum's, and I'd like to have Councillor Bestwick bring his forward under a separate motion.
Your Worship, I believe Councillor Yoakum is willing to withdraw his motion because it basically what his intent was communicated this evening. So if he's willing and in the agreement from the seconder,
Yeah.
he could withdraw his motion. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so now on the respect of the other one, it's Councillor Bestwick's. Councillor Armstrong, what were you?
Just wanted to let Councillor Bestwick know that we are working with School District 68. They come to the public safety meetings. We are going to have that. There will be a report that will be done once staff has the opportunity to do it. And we are working together at that meeting. Pete Sabo was at our meetings.
Excuse me, ma'am.
So just to refresh, Pete Sabo does come. He meets with Mr. Breton. He met with us. We've had the discussions around that, and they do continue on a regular basis. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do you, just as a question, do you have any idea when a recommendation might be coming forward to council?
I can bring it forward myself. I can draft it up myself and bring it forward on Monday, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. That's great. We're making great progress with the school board through the Public Safety Committee. We have a School District 68, City of Nanaimo joint partnership, joint agreement. The staff meet together, and I think it's 4 times a year. And why do we meet? To discuss emerging issues that we have crossovers in jurisdiction, in operations. It behooves me to think that we should not be directing our staff, council direct staff, to meet with school district staff specifically to discuss needles, cleanup, pickup, roles, responsibilities, security on sites that we jointly manage. And if we don't do that, and I heard Councillor Armstrong say, well, I can just bring a motion on Monday. Is there a public safety meeting between now and Monday? Then if not, then let's just do it now. Make the motion now. Why do we have to wait till Monday? Make the motion right now. It's a COW meeting. Let's do it right now. Let's have the open discussion and debate right now of whether we can do it or not. Because another meeting after another meeting after another meeting. And we were in January. The folks were here in January, and this is just one piece of our community. There's other pieces that are probably sitting there just waiting to see what happens with this one. So if we don't direct council, if we don't direct staff to meet with school district staff, they're all at work tomorrow, they're all at work Wednesday, they're all at work Thursday, they're all at work Friday, and bring back a report to council on Monday that's a paragraph. And says, here's what we've discovered with the school district. And it's a priority for council that we get this done on Monday. So I'm challenged to think, this isn't news to us either. This isn't the first time we've heard about this. So if you'd like a motion to direct staff to meet with school board staff and any third parties.
Please do. Please do,
I so
Councillor.
move that we direct staff to meet with school district staff and any third-party stakeholders this week and return to council with recommendations on March the 19th.
Moved by Councillor Bestwick and seconded by Councillor Fuller. Any further discussion? Not, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. We have a delegation from Mr. Lauren Goodall with an introduction and purpose of the new Nanaimo-Syroxman Stadium Board, directors and partners with the City of Nanaimo. You have 10 minutes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Dr. Lauren Goodall. I'm the board chair of the new Nanaimo-Syroxman Board of Directors of the Syroxman Stadium Amateur Baseball Association. I gather we've provided you with a letter of introduction, and to that we want you to meet the board, many of whom are here today. As I've stated, I'm the president. We have the first president, Bruce Hunter, here. Second Vice President, Mel Huggins, is unavailable. Treasurer Jerry Laporte is here. Secretary Ann Hayes is unavailable. Director Don Hubbard is here. Director Dan Rogers is here. And Director Dennis Campbell is unavailable today. Also here is the president of the Nanaimo Minor Baseball Association and the person who inspired forming the Syroxman Board, Mike Hollis. The Syroxman Stadium, as you're maybe aware, is used by Nanaimo Minor Baseball, Nanaimo Senior Men's Baseball Association, the Mid-Island Pirates, and the VIU Mariners. And our board would like to express their gratitude for the City of Nanaimo securing this Syroxman Stadium. We look forward to working with city staff to maintaining and bringing the stadium back to being the premium stadium in BC. Going forward, the board is working with staff on estimates for capital work to install artificial turf and lighting in the future. This will require capital dollars, and the new board will be fundraising and advocating in the community to support the refurbishing of this valuable community gym. We're open to take questions.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Dr. Goodall, thank you. This could be one of the good news highlights of this evening's meeting. I'm personally thrilled that your organization has been formed. As somebody who for many years was involved heavily in minor baseball and was one of the many community volunteers who actually helped build the stadium back in the 70s, I know it is a gem. And long has been. I also know that it's getting a bit tired, and I'm really, really heartened to hear that your organization is going to be working closely with the city to refurbish it, improve it, and bring it back to its former glory. That's going to take some money, of course. So you mentioned fundraising. Do you have some specifics that you have in mind yet, or is that just a general hope?
We actually do have some money that's been donated by a well-minded community person, and not enough to proceed with any of the identified capital projects. We did have, the city arranged for Doug Warnell to do an assessment of the stadium itself, and my understanding is the bones of the stadium were very well constructed, and so in fact it's actually just needs, not window dressing, but its actual structure is quite sound. We would like to stage the project over a period of years. The first stage would be lights, the second stage would be infield turf. Third stage would probably be sort of the fencing and the building improvements. The fourth stage would probably be outfield turf, but the first two stages for sure. I understand that with turf you can utilize the fields 10 times more than you can with grass. And so that would allow the youth to get on the stadium. We would probably be able to invite other user groups, maybe hold some community events, maybe concerts, that sort of thing. The board would be sort of thinking about that aspect, and hopefully bring some dollars to the community as far as hotels and visitors, and we've got interests from other teams that want to come, and maybe we can hold some tournaments and follow a bit like the Kamloops model, ideally, of course, and try and make it worthwhile. We know that there's issues with funding at the moment, and getting sort of the go-ahead for us to proceed with capital projects, should we be able to fundraise the money on our own, would be helpful. And I understand the province is interested in giving us some money as long as the city makes an ask. We can't ask what the city can, so we've met with Leonard Krog about that already. So there was a deadline that we unfortunately missed, but we'd like to get in line for next year, and I suppose sometimes there's some money that's available.
Good. I'm sure you'll explore every possibility. If I may, Chair, one other question. The regular week-to-week maintenance of the ballpark, is that something that your group will talk to city staff and sort of coordinate with them?
We got part of the way through a co-management agreement and had everything but the short jobs ironed out, and Alice Heron will be working on that. We do have, I think, 95% of it nailed down, and we've collected some money from the user groups to provide for some of the services. So the board will be administering the funds given to us by the user groups to provide some of the maintenance services. There will be a little bit of a shortfall, but at least we will be contributing $25,000 toward it, or $24,000 anyway toward it. So.
Oh, that's great. Very good news. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you. Well, indeed, one of our finest acquisitions being Rotary Bowl and the Sir Stadium to preserve this for future generations to come. We've had the benefit of both those stadiums for approximately 50 years on the backs of volunteers and businesses that have contributed and contributed to ensuring that those stadiums are available to the general public. My questions are, one of my comments is, we learned last week that DCC monies for park improvements and so on and so forth in stadiums and infrastructure builds are no longer available to us to use.
Yes, that wasn't good news to us.
That
either.
wasn't good, no, indeed, it was not good news whatsoever. And so alternate means of funding and financing capital projects will need to be well thought out, because our city is aging, and our infrastructure, just like Rotary Bowl and Sir Stadium and others, are in desperate need of upgrades or improvements or replacements. You mentioned several phases of capital projects. Have you have had a survey done on what those amounts would be in today's dollars, I'm guessing. So do we have an idea of what those phases, to bring it to the standard that we would like it to be? Do we have a ballpark number?
I don't.
No pun intended with ballpark number either.
Yeah. I understand that Doug Warnell's done some work, and he was brought over and we met with him at the stadium, and he's putting together a project. He did the Kamloops Stadium, and he's done other stadiums around the world.
Great stadium.
So he's got a good experience, and I forget the name of the architectural firm in Vancouver that he's from, but it's a well-recognized firm that has a special, a specialty in doing sports stadiums and sports projects around the world. So that's underway, and that isn't quite ready yet, but it's going to go to city staff to have a look at after it's done. Don has been the board chair.
Please come to the podium, sir. Thank you.
Don's been the one that's been dealing with that piece of the puzzle, so I'll just move aside for him.
I'm not really the bean counter, but I'll do. So lighting, we're around $540,000. The artificial turf in 2 phases, plus all the other amenities were another, yeah, it's LED, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah, but about 380,000. We weren't going to go LED, but the total bill, if you did all the phases over a period of years, were about 1.2 million. So I don't know how many years we're looking at. We're probably 3 to 4 years, I would think.
Yeah,
something like that.
Doug Warnell was going to put together something that was exacting and lined out in a way that would make sense, that fit the sort of the priorities. The first phase would be something to do with lights, because that'll increase the use time in the seasons where, other than the middle of July, right? Because the baseball teams are on them in February, and it'd be nice to be able to allow the youth to use it through the winter and that sort of thing. So lights would be the first thing. We're going to be doing some work on the grass and the stadium itself to make it much better than it is now, and it's already starting to come around with the specific maintenance person that we've got involved at the moment.
Thank you. Just a last quick comment. If we've missed the round of funding provincially for 2018, then I assume that gives us plenty of time to be way ahead of the curve for lobbying and getting our application in for the 2019 round of funding from the province.
I'm not 100% convinced we've completely missed it. We're a little late, but if someone else is unable to utilize their funding, then we can have a backup offer, if you know what I mean.
So do I hear, I thought I heard you say that we have to do that. So
Yes.
are you talking to our staff to put this together?
We needed the budget first before we could actually apply, and then it has to have, an application has to go through the city to the province, and their year end is the end of this month, so we're getting tight in time. And of course, there's a lineup of organizations, like-minded organizations that are looking for.
Well, yes, but we have Leonard to
Exactly.
carry the torch, so we should be
We've already
good.
been to see him.
Okay.
Don and I met with Leonard. He's ready to carry the torch. So.
Good. Thank
So, just so you understand, the fundraising, or the plan was a third, a third, and a third. That was what we were aiming for, a third from us in the community, yeah, and then a third from the city and a third from.
You haven't told us that part yet.
No. No.
Yeah, we weren't quite ready with that piece. We were hoping that report would be here for tonight, but it's not, so.
No, we don't have that.
Thank you. Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Good work, guys. Congrats on your newly formed board. It's fortunate myself, spent a lot of years up there with Mike and Dan and those guys over the years. Question I have, which I'm sort of struggling with. I heard you say, Mr. Goodale, about might be other purposes. I'm strictly we're hoping just be for baseball. But I heard you say other purposes.
Well, that was, our society is for amateur baseball, right? So that's going to be the main goal. Though we are, NMBA is arranging a fundraiser where the Blue Jays are coming to do something in July. So that's, I suppose, what I was alluding to. It's a fundraiser, and some of it will go to the Jays, and some of it will go, I believe, to the Sroxman for a previous fundraiser.
But a stadium strictly for baseball.
That's the main plan.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we
Just thinking until you get your turf, because we all know what other things will do to the field. So just concerned.
Yes.
Great.
No, we'd like
thanks.
to have a wonderful baseball park. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We have no further questions for you. Certainly appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, it's now approaching 6:30, at which time we had a scheduled break, a recess for 10 minutes. So everybody take a load off your mind, big stretch. We'll be back at 6:40. 6:40. Thank you.
In RDN funding is significant. We, as the NRE Board, respectfully ask the Nanaimo City Council to carefully review the well-established need this community has for a one-stop drop zero-waste recycling center. We also ask Council to carefully review the ease by which the city has the opportunity to meet this need, especially by considering the NRE has already secured and established an ideal central location, a costed and approved architectural design with a trusted local contractor, and most importantly, a tried, tested and true, low-cost operational model with an enormous amount of public support. That is all I have to say. Thank you for your time and your continued consideration of this matter.
Thank you very much, sir. I've got a couple of questions for you. Council, keep it to questions to the delegation. Councillor Hone.
Thank you, Ben, for your presentation. It was interesting that you mentioned Metro Vancouver. So what do you know about their facility they just built?
Well, I was flipping through the internet, just looking at what other jurisdictions have zero waste recycling facilities, and it was like March 15th, Metro Vancouver announces a zero waste recycling facility.
Yep, and did you read that article?
I did read the article, yeah.
So you talk about zero waste, but the stuff that they collect is only extended producer responsibilities. They don't collect the other stuff that you're referring to, so they're not at zero waste. So they're nowhere near ahead of us.
Well, that
is the question I
can
asked.
reply to that for sure.
Okay.
Metro Vancouver actually hasn't had the benefit of having a nonprofit zero waste recycling
I agree.
organization that has been pushing forward zero waste recycling. So they're actually starting off, they're putting money towards taking, if you read the article, more and more materials each year. But they actually don't have the knowledge and the skill to do that. And like in Nanaimo, the NRE's been doing it for 25 years, and we don't have to start from scratch and lose a lot of money trying to figure it out. So that is the difference for sure.
And thank you for that. And that was my next question. If the NRE was so great and they've been doing it for 25 years, how come nobody's copying? Like, why didn't Vancouver just do what we do here? I'm not saying that you guys don't do a good job, but why don't they just do it?
Well, I think that's a great question, and that's why we're blessed to live in Nanaimo. We have a very committed community and volunteers who take waste recycling seriously. And it's been a gift, and we're being handed on a silver platter of like a committed group. Not every community has that, have like done the legwork of it.
Yeah.
And I think that if other jurisdictions did see the NRE model, and we do have people from the United States, from the EPA coming up here to look at the NRE. I don't know if you saw the article. There was a zero waste, because of the community here, a zero waste a conference, and there was people from Brazil, Italy, and when they heard about the NRE, they're extremely interested. So yeah, we're leading edge here.
And I agree with you. No argument.
And I think that if we continue on this track, because we're on the leading edge of what's happening, it's going to have economic benefits and really draw other communities, and we can be really proud of what we're accomplishing.
Okay, and then one more question is with regards to Vancouver. It only cost them roughly $2 million to build their facility. Why is it costing so much more to build ours?
Well, I only saw the photos, but it didn't look like they actually had much, and probably the reason why they can't collect, for example, maybe the styrofoams and that is because they probably don't have a compactor yet, they probably don't have a baler. Both those things require to have covered areas. They probably actually haven't, we've been developing a business plan to actually pay for the styrofoam, and so, well, that requires a nice big building to house a reuse store because that money pays and subsidizes all the hard to recycle and toxic items. So all these parts of this zero waste business plan all fit together so that it can be as low cost as possible for the community, for the individual taxpayer. And that's what we have going for us. There may be a bit more upfront capital cost, but down the line, we are going to be saving a ton of money because we already have an operational model that's been working and works. We've been operating in a vacuum of funding for 25 years, and as a result, we're kind of like the shrew that took over the dinosaurs. We're efficient, and we can operate under adverse conditions, and if the market fluctuates and steel commodities bottoms out, the NRE is going to make it through. There might be for-profits that collapse and can't do it, but the NRE is tried, tested, and true through the hard times as well as the good. And yeah, that's the reason why.
Thank you. I have some other questions I want to ask staff, but I think you've answered the ones that I needed to answer, but there's
Excellent.
more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong.
Again, I'm going to reiterate what Councillor Yocum has said. For 3 times now, 3 different meetings, I've been asking to see a business plan or financial plan. I want to know what the operating costs are, what are the salary costs. We've yet to see any of that. So you're asking me, it'd be like saying you want me to invest in a business without knowing what the business costs, what the salary dollars are, and give you money. I can't do that without a business plan. Are we ever going to see one, number one? My second question is, I still don't know what your ask is.
Councillor Armstrong, by the end of these presentations, I would like you to be completely armed with every single financial detail that you need to make this decision. The financial details are actually not complicated whatsoever, and unfortunately, we were hamstrung by an RDN staff process that we had to respect and the numbers had to go through them. And I apologize if you didn't get the full numbers that you needed to make a decision. However, you're right now, the NRE can directly give information to the councillors to make a decision, and I hope that by the end of the presentations, of which we've directed our executive direction to give, you will have the full numbers to hopefully make a very easy decision. This, dealing with the non-curbside collectible recyclables, is an important public service that we need to provide, and this is the cheapest way that this city is going to achieve this, and it is an opportunity that is slowly disappearing, and we'll be incurring much larger costs in 2, 3, 4 years when we have to get this done anyhow. So with that.
So it's follow-up, because in order, like doing the math based on the figures we were given, we're going to look anywhere from a 10 to 15% property tax increase to support that.
I don't think that those numbers are even close to what the property tax increase would be.
Well, my understanding is per million, it's what, a 1% tax increase? Is that correct?
Or
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah, it
no,
is.
1%, yeah.
And the numbers
Yeah.
that we were given over
Yeah.
the time frame was close to, what, $20 million? That's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, the costs, I guarantee, are not going to be that high, and our executive director will be filling
Okay,
everybody
then
in
I'll
on
stop
that.
now and wait for that
And I
information.
think that if we look at things at an annual cost.
Okay, yeah, I'll wait and
we'll
I'll
avoid-
get the
excellent.
information then, thank you. Just, that's one of the questions I do
Yeah,
have.
I appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Mr. Silver? Yep. Haben, thanks. Well, to Councillor Yocum, to Councillor Armstrong, to Councillor Hong's inquiry, and we've had many meetings, you and I as well. And throughout each and every one of those sessions, the question has arisen, what are you asking for? Because without the detail, without the specifics, the devil is always in the detail, as they say. So we know what took place at the RDN. So the solid waste management plan, recommendation number 2, $300,000 into the SWMP plan for 5 years. And which still has to go to the province, but I would have to understand that that would probably be accepted and approved and all those things. So I said, okay, and which the city pays $170,000 of the 300, plus or minus. And we know that there's $396,000 over the 6-year period, and on an annual basis, it is contributed to NRE from the city and the RDN, minus the permissive tax exemption for the property, or not inclusive of the permissive tax exemption, I should say. So then when we get the report that was commissioned and paid for to try to put some numbers on the page for us at the RDN and here, I have to ask the question, on top of the $300,000 from the RDN, which the city is $170,000, what is your ask of this council? Because I heard you say 350,000 over 25 years. So are you looking for $50,000 because you've received 300? Are you looking for the same benefits that you're receiving, and I call them benefits, but the same contributions, the $396,000 in fees and waiving of fees and so on and so forth? Like, so, along with the 7,300 postcards and the 6-year timeline that I got sometime late last night, I wish you also provided me with this financial plan. Because at the end of the day, that is the critical piece to the whole equation. What are you asking for and for how long? And what is the return? I'm not suggesting that you guys don't do a great job, that you're loved and all that stuff. It's great. But what is the information? Where's the analytics? Where's the algorithms? Where's the numbers? What's going to happen in 2019 when MMBC, or whatever they're called now, says, sorry, we're not sending the same amount of money that we used to? What happens when our curbside goes 100%, picking up leaves and that was going to you, that doesn't come to you anymore, that you would benefit from? What starts to happen with all of those minuses?
So there are items that will never be able to run an efficient curbside collection system for recyclables. It's not going to happen. Having a zero waste, hand sort separated recycling center is essential infrastructure for the future. You need a location that can come, sort, and distribute. And you need to be able to have it in a centrally located part of town. I don't want to take any more time up here than necessary because I feel there's some anxiousness to get some hard numbers here and so we can get on with this process. I can assure you that it's quite simple. There's a need for a new facility to be built. The NRE, because we've been paying for the recycling of the city for the last 25 years in styrofoam and plastics and other materials that cannot be recycled, that are hard to recycle, that cost money, we've not been able to generate and build enough capital to build the facility ourselves because we've been paying for the city's recycling. That's not okay anymore. The city and the community has to pay to take responsibility for these items so that they're not polluting our environment. And so we're asking for a new facility to be built that is community focused, and it's a nonprofit, so it's community owned. And I think now is a good time to have Jan Hastings, our executive, come up here, director, to answer some questions around financials and bring some more light to the situation.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hastings.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jan Hastings. I'm the Executive Director of Nanaimo Recycling Exchange. I was going to go through a review of the timeline. I think we've all agreed we've been doing this for 6 years, since 2012. We have gone back and forth between the City of Nanaimo and Nanaimo Recycling, and the RDN. In the beginning, when we were trying to find and get approved a site design because we outgrow every facility we occupy, and so we have outgrown this one. It was suggested by city managers like, hey, you perform a great service for us, and we also know that our new bylaws for the type of building you would have to build for a recycling operation and all of the site costs that Ben mentioned, we can see that that's probably way out of your league, and so we could build you a facility and you can operate it. That's where the idea came from. So then it went to the RDN, then it came back, And I was pretty innocent in those days. I had no idea what the processes were supposed to be in staff reports and all of that. I just went where people told me to go. So we went back and forth quite a few times. There was a point when the city may have had some land to offer us, and so that was going to be great. The idea with that was the city could offer city-owned land for the NRE. We would fund and build whatever construction we need. That was our working plan at the time. Council voted that down. No, we will not give you land. So then there we go back, you know, in and out of the process. RDN subcommittee told us to explore other options. And the options was, well, build something cheaper. So we go back to the city, and the city tells us, no, our bylaws and regulations say you cannot do that. It's one thing to do it down in Chemainus or, you know, south of town. We don't want that in the middle of the city. And by the time you build that and apply all of the engineered systems to that, it is not cheaper. Another option that the RDN gave to us was go and partner with a private recycling organization. So diligently off we go and approach 2 private recyclers who need a return on investment if they're going to invest. There you go again. That pushes the lease. If they lease something back to us, build and lease back to us, the lease payments are too high. That was actually more expensive than a mortgage for us. So 2 private recyclers and a developer in town. Developers also need return on investment. So none of those worked. In the meantime, our building crumbled around us. We came up with a design for a new building, which has been mentioned, is essentially a shell. It's not an elaborate building. It is uncooled, for the most part, uncooled, unheated, and unfinished. But it fits the regulation. It costs more because everything we use to recycle has to be contained within that building. And also the site costs for a recycling depot come in at 40% of the total construction cost. That's very high. I'm told it's usually something like 80-20, but because of all the, we have to be sure that nothing leaks down into the lake and ends up where it isn't supposed to be. So yes, we have been back and forth. We were here in October. There was a staff report presenting some options, and then there was a second staff report that referred us back to the RDN with the statement that the secured provision of a one-stop zero-waste depot is essential to the momentum and success of a zero-waste future in our region. 4 months later, the RDN denied the request. So where we are is the public tells us every day, and they have been doing so for some time, that they want the city to build a better facility. We brought that plan and our message forward. I am by no means any kind of professional lobbyist. I will also say I probably did not navigate the staff report process in the best way. I am not sure our message came through about what we were trying to do. We offered a plan with a tested model for the most cost-effective way to deal with the waste we have now and the waste of the future. We offered a plan that included education, so the right behavior becomes the standard to improve on. We were hoping for a response that said, we have new targets in this area. We are moving from 65% diversion to 90% diversion. So we need all the players, everybody who recycles, the NRE and all the privates, we need everybody on board to meet these targets. What can we do to ensure the NRE and the zero waste program survives? We hoped what we do would stand out. And I think somehow the heart of our message, it seemed to get clouded. We also hope for an agreement in principle of the urgency. Our landfill's getting full, climate change is real and very expensive, and we have to change our everyday habits in this community. If you throw your mattress in the landfill gets full. If your mattress is recycled, it doesn't fill up the landfill. Filling up the landfill has a high price tag. If you buy a new mattress, if you buy one made of recycled material, it takes 1/5 of the energy than buying a mattress that wasn't constructed that way. We need to do that for climate change. And that, we believe that behavior change really needs to happen. Some information about plastic. Since 1950, 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic has been produced. We have recovered and recycled 8 or 9% of that. The rest of that is in our landfills and our waterways. We need to do more, not less. The RDN waste audit also says that we have way too much recyclable material in our landfill. The last waste audit came in at 63%. I don't know if it's still that high, but it's too high. So we want to do more recycling, not less. That's our key message. So in this community, we spend money to keep yard waste and kitchen scraps out of the landfill. A truck comes and picks it up pretty much from your doorstep, all of our doorsteps, and takes it to the right place to make sure it doesn't end up in the landfill. This costs money. We do this to avoid the cost of siting a new landfill or eventually transporting garbage to another jurisdiction when this one is full. We spend money to educate people how to recycle. We spend smaller dollars because it makes sense to avoid the higher costs coming down the road of siting a new landfill and climate change. This is our message. So I don't put this up to point fingers at anybody. There's a little bit of each of us standing in that lineup. We all know we need to do more. The NRE gives us a chance to do more and to mean zero waste when we say it, and to have a plan to reach those 90% targets. And one point about the 90% targets, I sat on that committee. We agonized over that number because it's high, and we know that. We knew it was possible if we use every recycling service we already have in this community, we continue to educate people, and we make a couple regulation changes. So another big part of our message is, well, why does the NRE have to be part of the picture of the future? And it's because, yes, recycling has changed. Nobody really needed to worry about zero waste recycling in the past. And when I say zero waste recycling, I mean the stuff we recycle. There's no money for it. It costs us money to recycle. One reason, we have to get to the 90% diversion target. It's doing that. It's not going to be the same way we got to where we are now. It's going to be vastly different. The NRE is the only depot that does that kind of recycling. It is nothing like the good old days. There are two major changes. Today, many products must be hand sorted, and you have to have zero contamination, not 0.5, 0. So that's what we do at the NRE. We hand sort and make sure everything goes in the right place. In the old days, these products made money. Now they cost us money to do that, and we have to pay somebody to accept it. It's good because then they can build another product out of it, but nobody's buying these plastics from us. The NRE has carried these costs for
I need to
decades.
get it to wrap up.
Thank you. At $300,000 a year for even 10 years, that's considerable cost and investment on our part. We've never invoiced anybody for that. This kind of recycling will never pay for itself. From this day forward, these products will need to be recycled with public funds, or we put it in the landfill. We have to decide that. We also heard everything comes down to money and we need to change our business model. Yes, there's money involved in this, absolutely. Given the story about recycling that I've just said, it's really hard to change a business model when you're never going to be paid for these products. Saying everything comes down to money, would we ignore an oil spill in the Salish Sea if we couldn't make a profit cleaning it up? I don't think quite everything comes down to money. The NRE is honestly, it's like a MASH unit. We cleaning up a waste spill every single day. If you've been there, you know what I mean. Another thing we heard was we do enough now because we do more than other areas. So here are some municipalities that actually own
Ms.
and
Ms.
operate
Hastings, I got to
recycling
stop you
depots.
here for a second. Council, how much longer do you need?
Oh, 2 minutes.
Council? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry. So other municipalities do own and operate recycling depots. And as mentioned, many other regional districts also. But when you look at the number of them, I'm not sure we do as much or more as other areas. So I've tried to explain a little bit about our history and why the NRE needs to be here, which brings us to now. We have the same problem, except the problem since 2012, there's now a higher price tag. Our budget today stands at 6.05 million. Last year, when we got our budget, it was just over 5 million. While we've waited and asked for funding, construction has, I'm told, 1% per month increase, and so now we're looking at over 6 million. Our contribution to date has been significant. We've spent about 1.3 million in buying the property, paying the mortgage. We're quite happy to continue doing that. Every option we've had to explore that were given us to the RDN, you can spend easily $50,000 to $80,000 to come up with a design that's going to go somewhere. And we've done that more than once. So where things stand right now, as Ben mentioned, the RDN funding commitment falls well short. The $300,000, which was earmarked for zero waste recycling in the first place, not a mortgage, won't be approved until May if it is approved. It won't be available in 2019, until 2019, and the 5-year commitment is actually 20 years short of the term of a mortgage for us. And so that's a significant shortfall. And the NRE Board of Directors has determined that, yes, we were hopeful, but hope is just not enough. The Board of Directors has decided the shortfall leaves too big of a funding gap, and they're not prepared to incur such large debt with that level of commitment. So our construction budget stands at 6.5 million, and I'm here to ask you, yes, together, can we find a solution? Is there a way the City of Nanaimo can fund the construction? 6.05 million. We will continue to pay the mortgage on the land. We will continue, as Ben mentioned, to do the fundraising, commit to those numbers. And once our mortgage is paid off, that $10,000 a month also we would offer up to pay down the mortgage, to pay down what it costs to build. So our contribution has already been there. We're willing to maintain that contribution. It was these kinds of options that I'm saying right now just weren't flying in the first days of when I asked and then we met with staff, et cetera. It just got kind of streamed into one rigid offer. I never meant for that to happen. So we're open to a significant contribution, but we are still left with the same problem. We don't have the money to fund construction. We're looking for a collaborative process to work together to figure that out. We must now turn to site closure. Time is up, and our leases run out. We need time to close our gates and comply with our lease agreements, which says that we now have to do full demolition on the site, repair fences, leave it as a level gravel lot, to the tune of $100,000 of some very hard-earned recycling depot money. So whether that closure is permanent or temporary will be determined by your decision.
Thank you very much. Questions for the delegation? Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Ms. Hastings, thank you very much for coming tonight. I absolutely admire your passion and dedication to this cause. My question very simply is, in terms of a potential partnership, if you will, with the city, have you at this point actually embarked on a membership drive / fundraising campaign? Or have you been waiting to see if it's even viable to do so?
The second. One, we felt it would be very irresponsible to ask for people's money and then close the gates. And so, yes, we're waiting to see.
All right, thank you. I understand that dilemma, and that's what I suspected. I'll have other comments to make later in our debate, which I assume we'll be having, and I may be prepared to make some type of motion later on after our discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you, Jan, for your presentation. I get what you're asking for the actual building, but we still haven't seen a business plan. Like, I think everybody at this council, when we see like the Deep Sea Discovery Center, like the kayak people, like the farmers market, everybody comes up with a business plan first on how they're gonna make this. So what happens if you can't operate? What happens if Recycle BC changes the laws and the rules, which apparently they are, because I think we're group three, is that correct, Charlotte?
I don't know to which you're referring to, Councillor.
Yeah, this is their depot collection consultation workshop that they did. So this is something that they put together, and I'm just looking at that. So what happens if you have no money to do this, and if recycling costs more money? Are you coming back to the city saying now we need more and more and more? When do we as a city say, well, now we built a $6 million facility and it can't be used for anything? So what's the plan? Like, what's the business plan? 5-year, 10-year business plan?
So I believe the beginnings of, when we came here the first time, we were working with staff here to supply all those documents. That ended. Off we went to the RDN. The RDN asked us for many, many documents, including, you know, what turned into a 20-year financial projection, et cetera. So you need to know, we provided every single piece of financial and whatever else information the RDN asked for. We were never asked for a business plan.
Yeah, and thank you for that.
It was told, it was, give us these documents, we will create the business case.
They didn't create a business case. So what happened at the RDN was they created a business case for the actual building, exactly what you've presented to us at the $6 million cost. And over that 25 years is $20 million, what Councillor Armstrong, I think, said from their projections. So I think when we asked the RDN, well, how come there was no business plan? They said, whoa, this is gonna cost you way more money than what you allocated and way more time than for us to get this done before they're closed. So they didn't embark on that adventure. So we got a plan for your actual facility, but I get that, and we got that, but we didn't get a business plan on what ifs. What if Recycle BC changes? What if all these other things happen? So, and that's what we're after, is actual business plan for your business, not the actual building of the building, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah. And I don't know, because they never asked us for one. I'll never see that report, because it went in camera. So I don't know what it looked like in the end. Don't know how it represented the NRE. So as I mentioned, you know, you get streamed into a rigid process that I don't have any control over. So, you know, let's bring it back to here, and let's agree that whatever you need to know about the NRE to make a decision, the NRE can provide. I don't have it here in a package tonight. We need to figure out what is lacking from the information that has been provided already, both to the city in the beginning and then to the RDN. I'm guessing it's all there somehow, some way.
We as council have never seen those numbers. So that's a problem. That's all I can say. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying that we as council have never seen it, unless somebody else can correct me about a business plan, 3-5-year business plan.
And I understand, you know, you have your due diligence, the RDN has their due diligence. I respect that. I, you know, provide what was asked, and anyway.
Okay, thank you.
What you need is likely there.
Councillor Yocum.
Thank you. Could the RDN just deal with hard-to-recycle products and have subsidies for those items?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Could the RDN, sorry, the recycling exchange deal with the hard-to-recycle products and then obviously be subsidized for that? Would that help if you just dealt with the hard-to-recycle products?
That's what that money from the Solid Waste Management Committee is for. The NRE, because I sit on that committee, and we submitted to the Solid Waste Management Plan Committee, that number, 300,000, that is our expenses every year for managing those hard-to-recycle, zero-waste products for which there is no revenue. That's where that number came from.
Okay.
So it was never meant to be used to build a building. It was meant in that solid waste management plan to cover those costs. Yes, it's needed.
So you would just deal with the hard to recycle products and and not be competing with the private sector?
Well, we've had no choice in the past.
Yeah.
Because we've had to find the money somewhere.
And the only reason that is, I'm not, like, obviously I want this somehow to work. I'm just not sure about, like, if we're competing with the private sector. I've heard through numerous conversations at this table, we'd have to express some interest, RFP things, and those type of things. So this is really problematic. And I got the email from early last night and the timeline. And it's just need, like you say, we need $6 million, 6.05. So, yeah, I'm pleased you shared the numbers. I'm just really troubled that we don't have more of a package of information for this, like the staffing. I don't need names or nothing, just the whole model like we all have to do in our day-to-day jobs. And it's really troubling. I don't want to seem unsupportive, but it's really like, support this. If 7,000 people support this, or if you don't, you're done. Well, but I have responsibility to know what that is, besides just trying to political pressure someone. And that's not fair. But whatever, life's not fair, so I can deal with that. So I'm just being real there, and I wish I had more of a business plan, unless someone else does. Again, I'll leave it at that. Those are some questions. Oh, and say if we do pass it or come up with a solution, does it have to get tendered, the project and all that type of stuff? Like, does it go by the city rules, the union rules, like all that type of stuff? Like, there's so many unanswered questions.
My idea is that you let us build it, because I already have a construction management team for all of that to be taken care of. You would not want to get into that game. It's going to cost you way more than it's going to cost me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just asking the rules, that's all. Thanks.
Yep. Councillor Armstrong.
Now, you asked what do I need to make a decision? I'll tell you what I need. I need to see a financial plan, I need to see an operational plan, and I need to see a business plan. Because I can't make a decision without that, because that's like investing in something and not knowing anything about it. I do need to see that. I mentioned to you that the very first time you came to the finance and audit, that I wanted to see a business plan, I wanted to see a financial plan operating. I asked you about your succession plan. You know, like we take a look at what happened in Halifax, where all of a sudden they can't recycle their cardboard, so they have to go to the province for permission to put it into the landfill. So those are questions that, you know, like we're faced with, like, you know, because we are going to have to, if it does go through, it is going to mean an increase in property taxes. So not only is there 7,000 people here that we have to talk to, there's also the other 80-some thousand that we need to, as Councillor Yocum alluded to. So those are things that I need to see, and I'm sure you have them. And I'm sure between all the 7,000 people that support it, they should be able to come out and help you put together that plan. You know, like, I'm sure you've got the figures for it, and they can help build the plan. Like it was alluded to by Councillor Hung, any other time we get an ask for money, there's always a business plan for it, the operating costs, all of that. It's not just done verbally. So those are the things I would like to see in writing.
Well, again, I followed the procedure that was asked of me, so
Yeah, that's
now
fair,
today,
yeah, but you're just asking me what you need from me,
let's
that's,
get
or
that
what I
together.
need?
Yeah.
That's what I need. I'll have a lot of questions for staff when we
enough.
get to that point next, but you're asking me, like, I mean, I really appreciate the work you've done into it. I went out and did the tour with you. You know, I saw that. I've talked to like, obviously, we've talked to, VIRAC or whatever, they did their presentation where they say they can do the exact same job. So we have to take a look at all of that too, right? Like, whether they can or can't, I don't know, because I don't know. Like, I've done my own research. I looked at exactly what's going on, like was alluded to again in Vancouver, and their budget was significantly smaller than ours. But then is it comparing apples to apples, or is it apples to oranges? So those are questions that I would like answered. Thank you.
Councillor Beswick.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jan. I'm sorry that 6 years ago or so you were told that we'll build it and you can run it. I was here then, and I don't know that actually was presented to us here. I'm also sorry to hear that you were seeking city property at some point in time, somewhere near now, but backwards 6 years. I believe that the staff recommendation, and I stand to be corrected, not criticizing anybody, was not to provide the piece of property that was being asked for under the terms and conditions that it was being asked for. You made a comment that it's 6.05 or 6.5. I'm not, so I think 3 times, it was 6.05, then it was 6.5, then it was 6.05. Is it 6.05 or is it 6.5?
just to be sure. $6.05
6.05.
today.
Yep, so over 25 years, that's 7.5 million. So at $300,000 that the SWMP is willing to submit to the government that might come back favorably in May, and that's for 5 years. So what happens in years, so $1.5 million 5 years later, what happens for the next 20 years on a 25-year plan? Because you said it was over 25 years. So 25 years times 300, but there's no guarantee that every 5 years you're going to receive the $300,000 from the regional district, so, which is 170 cities. So I need to know, not unlike others, and unlike Councillor Hong, I don't know what you're asking for. Are you asking for $350,000 a year total?
No.
So, okay,
I'm
so
asking for 6.05 million.
So 6.05. So our report that we received, and I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about it because it was in camera. What was that?
Carry on.
Was significantly greater than $6.05 million.
Because, oh, sorry.
All I can, like you, all I can go on is what I'm given. And so if I'm given something, then I have to, that an accounting firm did, and our senior staff, subject experts, are telling us, it's probably closer to 7 or 8 or 9, then I can't argue with them about what they're telling us. That's what we're being told. Everybody at this table right here sat there and heard the same thing I heard. So these aren't my words. I'm parroting somebody else's. So at 300 for 5 years is $1.5 million for, in today's world, $6 million project. But by the time it's done, then it's $7 million. So how much more money do you need from us to service your debt, to build the building? That's what I need to know. $300,000 won't do it, right? So how much are you asking for us to provide on top of the $300,000 for 5 years, over 25 years, to build the building using the forecast, looking into the future, how much it's going to cost to build it and all that stuff? I don't care about operations right now. But I need to know how much you need from us to build it. How much?
$6.05 million.
Oh. Okay, so you're going to get $300,000. So you're going to go to the bank or you just want us to write you do you want us to write you a check for $6 million up front? Do you want us to provide you $300,000 more a year for the next 10 years? But interest is going to add up, so of course it's not 6 and it. So I need that's what we're asking for. And when I told, well, I gave everything that I was asked to give. Well, I've asked you for your financial plan many times. I've asked Ben, I've asked you many times. So whether you were asked for it or not to help form the RDN report that was done independent by KPMG or whoever did it, it would be helpful. It would be helpful to have that, whether you were asked for it or not. So I just need to know how much. What do you need? How much? What's the number? What is it? 200,000 more dollars? Because when we met, you said you needed another $200,000 to $250,000 a year from the city. You weren't sure. And that's what was taking you longer to come to us, because you weren't sure what the number was. So if there's somebody coming behind you in a delegation, then I'll let you go. That's going to tell us that, then I don't have any more questions.
Okay, so perhaps I can help you with that. The $300,000 is what Ms. Hastings has been calling a zero waste fund. That's what they've been paying over the years annually to dispose of the hard-to-dispose items. So our contribution of that, of the $300,000, is $168,000 at 56%. That being said, if they provide a requisition to us of $168,000 a year from the RDN, that the cost per $100,000 worth of assessed value will be 75 cents. So the $168,000 that's being requested that will come through an allocation from the RDN, 168,000 will be funded by a levy of 75.3 cents per 100,000 of assessed value. If you have a $500,000 home, that will cost you $3.76.7 per year. Now, I use these, I'm not going to divulge any of the numbers that came out of the RDN report, but I used Ms. Sadima's numbers to create what's required in the city of Nanaimo based on assessed value to come up with $168,000 a year. It's $3.76.7. The $6.05 million, if I've got this correct, the NRE will retain ownership and pay the mortgage on the land.
Correct.
Okay, so what they're asking of us is to fund, either by writing us a check for the full amount, or provide an annual amount that would fund the debt servicing on $6.05 million starting today. I've worked that out to $1.80 per 100,000 of assessed value. So if you have a $500,000 home, that $400,000 a year roughly to service a $6 million debt will cost you $9 per year. It's okay.
That's exactly.
And I
that's
used
what
those
we said.
numbers based on what Ms. Adema at the RDN gave us.
That's why they should do membership drive.
I'm seeing staff shaking their heads.
Staff, actually, the finance department has not seen the RDN report. I was involved in the committee that sat with Jan and Myers Norris Penny and looked on the 20-year plan, but we have never, the finance department has not seen the final financial numbers, so we could not comment on your calculations.
Well, I can give you an example. $533,000 a year of capital of debt. $533,000 requisition to the city of Nanaimo, according to them, is $2.48 per 100,000. So I just calculated those numbers. Councilor Bestwick.
I don't know, is Jan the last speaker, or Ms. Hastings the last speaker, or is there more?
Oh, she's the last one.
Well, it is so important that the report that has been created, when we're talking about, this isn't any different to me than 2 hours ago. School board, city, park, school, cleanup, who? Me, you. How much? What percent? When? What's it going to cost? Money to do it. So if we have 30,000 homes in Nanaimo, and it's only going to cost $9 each, that's $360,000. So if that's what I'm hearing, that you need $360,000, I don't care what the requisition says or what the requisition is for. It's for education, it's for this, it's for that, it's not for the building, it's for something else. The end of the day, the $300,000 is the number that's been determined that is the cost to take the non-recyclable products per se. And we're told in the report that there's 3 or 4 of those. And we're told in the report that it represents 0.1% of what goes into, that would go into the landfill. The report says that 0.1% would be kept out of the landfill. So we're all talking here about stuff, and I'm not a financier. I just want to know, what do you want? Is it 25 years times $400,000 a year? Is it 20 years times $600,000 a year? And how we split that with the RDN on our 56% or 60%. That's all that I'm a simpleton. So if I can't be told that after all of these meetings that I've participated in, and our staff haven't seen the report yet, and we're trying to make this up on the fly, we get criticized heavily. I can hardly wait to read social media tonight and tomorrow about this conversation. If we do something on the fly, which has taken us 6 years. And our 2 respective staffs who worked on this together on the committee with you, haven't read the report together. I'm not criticizing staff, I'm not criticizing them, I'm just saying they can't give us advice, professional advice, because they haven't seen the report yet. I've seen it. I've read it, front to back, back to front. So until such time as our staff can be in a position to tell us exactly what this is going to cost us, not on the fly that it's $9 a household, I don't know that. I don't know that's what it is. And it's 5 years. So we're talking 5 years. What happens in year 6? Because the SWMP money is for 5 years, $300,000, to offset the cost of the non-recyclable stuff that you take, because that's what it costs you to handle that. So what happens in year 6 when that money's gone? If you don't get it again in the next ask. The next board of directors says, What happens?
That's the danger of telling us we compete with the private sector too much and we shouldn't take any commodity materials. That's what would pay in 5 years if the RDN decides. You know, the solid waste management plan is for 10 years. I don't know why 5 years was decided. It doesn't make any sense to me. The term of that plan is 10 years. Why was it cut to 5? I don't know.
But
I guess we would revert
question is,
to
what happens in year
previous
6?
operational model.
What happens to NRA in year 6 if that $300,000 goes away? What happens?
I don't know whether to answer or not, sorry. I didn't mean to butt in.
Well, I'm just trying to ask straightforward questions.
Are you ready to answer?
I don't know which question to answer, sorry.
That's all right.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you. And I just wanted to ask also, so the city gives you $77,000 right now for education a year, roughly, right? Is that correct?
That covers 5 things: networking and outreach and education and independent research and marketing.
Great. And would you continue to ask for that money?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
And then,
a different set of operations.
yeah, so, but I know, but it adds up again to the taxpayers. So again, it's just, so that's another one. Would you continue to ask for another $270,000 roughly from the RDN, which I guess I have an issue with, because now we take our own yard waste, we pay for it. The RDN takes yard waste through the NRE, which the NRE then pays the bills, which the taxpayers are paying for, which we already do. So I don't know why yard waste is going there and the taxpayers are still paying for it. So it seems like I'm gonna have to talk to staff about that one because I'm really confused about that. So would you still continue to ask for roughly $270,000 from the RDN? Because that's currently what they pay you per year.
Well, actually, it's not. And yes, we need clarification on yard waste. It's one of the most confusing.
Agreed.
The RDN has a put or pay contract at Nanaimo Organic Waste. So they must pay to take our kitchen scraps there, and they need a certain amount of yard waste to mix with that. That's why they have that contract. We just implement the contract. They do not give us money. They simply pay the tip
bills,
fees.
yes, and I agree.
So when that contract ends, which it is going to because of curbside pickup, that's done.
So
We've
with the
already
money,
taken that out of our 20-year projection. I don't know if you caught that or noticed it. Fine print, probably. No, that's already gone. We are planning for that to be gone.
but yet you
The
still.
program may or may not continue, from which we could continue to make revenue. Like you, I'm not going to project that on the fly here
But
and
that's
now
what we
in a
need
short
to make
time.
projections, and I get not on the fly, but that's what we needed to see, because from your plans, I see those bins, and you plan to collect on a lot of yard waste because of the size of the actual space, on the outdoor space that you were willing to do with your building, because there seems to be like a lot of outdoor space with bins for yard waste and as such. So it's just one of those things I see when we saw the design plans that you had anticipated on taking yard waste.
That design is for the exact same operations we have now.
But you've
remember,
just
we've
said
been
you're not going to
designing
be
it for a long
taking,
time.
so you're not going to be
as-
taking it.
Should I answer? As I mentioned, that will come, the RDN will stop paying those tip fees. And the NRE, because it's a centrally located area, may or may not carry on with a yard waste program, completely an NRE yard waste program, for which we could make significant revenue or not, doesn't make that much money, in the future, which would or would not become surplus, that we are, again, offering back to this project to contribute.
Yeah, and that's, and I agree with you. I don't see you having, but as a one-stop drop-off, it's convenient for people, what I heard, to drop off yard waste. For some of the ones that don't have it, which I'm assuming everyone will, but I guess you won't, already a city and Nanaimo won't be taking bigger sticks than, so it's those questions that we don't have answers to, and which is we're trying to figure out on what the city is gonna do with our yard waste program, which I didn't support to take, and what you guys are doing and how you're gonna fund these or what your plans are. So I can't do those without these numbers, because at this rate, when I look at this, just for the city of Nanaimo alone, well, if I include your $6 million ask at 3.5% mortgage, it's about $30,000 a month, $360,000 a year, I think is what Councilor Bestwick or Mayor McKay said. And then taking the $300,000 from the RDN, $170,000 roughly is Nanaimo share. $77,000 from Nanaimo, that already adds up to $600,000 of taxpayer money. I'm not even sure what the RDN share will pay, because if it's $270,000, I know that's yard waste, but if we take yard waste out, there is still the free disposal fee and a few of those other fees in there that I don't have on the top of my head to break down. So when we look at this, it's roughly a $700,000 cost for the taxpayers in Nanaimo at minimum forever. Or at least until the building's paid off in 25 years. Or in the RDN's case, 5 years for the $170,000 if they decide to go anywhere else. 5 years is a good term. It's really unethical to go past 5 years for anybody to commit to that term. So I know why they went with 5. It's just more ethical to give somebody a 5-year contract as opposed to a 10-year contract. It's like our cell phone bills. Why don't we be stuck for 3 years when I can be stuck for 2? So I understand that. It might exist after, but we don't know. So that's just some of the questions I have. And again, I know I don't have the answers, and I was just hoping for some. Thank you.
Okay, before you go on, Councillor Thorpe's got a question to ask. Are you going to be putting forward a motion to refer to staff, refer back to staff?
Delegation is finished, that was the intent of my thought, but I do have some comments to make as well after the delegation.
I wonder, with respect to that one, Ms. Fuller, you worked with the RDN on this file. Do you feel confident, based on what you've heard tonight, that you can provide council all of the answers to the questions that we have?
If council wants a business plan, no, we do not have. As far, I would agree that all that was done for the RDN was a 20-year projection on the operations of the building, or that's my understanding. That's the meeting that I sat in on, is where we did financial projections for 20 years for the operation of the building. But if council wants a business plan to make a decision on this, a business plan would have to be developed, so the NRE would need, because I have not seen a business plan from the NRE. We have seen financial statements from the NRE, that is correct. They provided that to us, but we have not seen what we would consider a full business plan for the operation of the new facility.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
If there's no more questions to the delegation.
Well, we have no more. Thank you, Ms. Hastings.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Chair.
If we can get on with our business, folks.
So if I may, I have some comments I'd like to make, and then I will make a motion, and then we can debate that as you will. So first of all, for me personally, some of the concerns and questions that seem to bother others around this table are not as big a concern to me. I keep hearing the need for a business plan being stressed, and I understand that we would want to see some type of business plan, but then I have to keep reminding myself that we are talking about a not-for-profit organization here that provides a service to our community, that has the support of our community, that first of all allows people in our community to recycle just about everything fairly easily. I haven't heard anything mentioned about the social enterprise component of this organization, the employment it offers to people who might otherwise not have a job, the resale, the thrift store, which is part of the organization, the education component which they provide, and the fact that they rely mainly on volunteers. RDN funding is a fee for service, which NRE provides. That's fine. Now I'm hearing, and I'm hearing fairly definitely, they need money for a new building. They've got the land, they've got a design, it's expensive to build to meet the requirements that are necessary. So they're asking us to help them. And if we buy in a partnership with them, it'll also be a partnership with the community, with a fundraising drive, a membership drive, maybe corporate support, hopefully. Other nonprofits have come to the city and asked for money. And I don't recall us getting really bent out of shape about a business plan. We haven't asked for a business plan. We've acknowledged that they provide a service to the community, and we've been willing to help them. Now, admittedly, the amount has been less. But to me, what's just as important is that what the NRE does seem to have is a good operational model, and they've proven that it works over years. So what would be the picture, and this is what I'm thinking, what if the picture, what is the picture if the NRE ceases to exist? And the short answer is Nanaimo will recycle less because people will not be bothered to trail around to all the different places that might be necessary to drop off their bits and bobs. We are not being asked to invest in a business, we're being asked to invest in a service to our community. And sure, we have to ask, is it worth that investment, depending on how much is the ask? Well, I think we've been told tonight what it is, and it's substantial. But I want to give this a chance. And I'm not prepared to make a motion to do it just on the fly. I agree, that's not good governance. I think we recognize that council has to be responsible, and we have to investigate this. But that's what I'm going to ask tonight, that we give our staff a chance to investigate this a little bit further before we slam the door on NRE for good. So, Mr. Mayor, after all of that, my motion, because I recognize that making a financial contribution will have implications for our sanitary user rates possibly, but I'm going to make a motion that we ask our staff for a report on options to financially support the request of the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange. On options to financially support the request. And this will enable us to make a good decision. It will mean a little bit more time, but it will maybe give the information that other councillors feel they need. And if we choose at that point that we cannot responsibly proceed, fair enough. So that is my motion. If there is a seconder.
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councillor Thorpe and seconded by Councillor Armstrong. On the motion, Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Yeah, I support sending it back to staff for information, but what exactly are you asking, Councillor Thorpe? Because I think the RDN did do that. Because all they're asking right now is for $6 million for a building. That's what we did at the RDN. So what more information do you need? I'm just confused on what we're asking. Are we asking staff to do a business plan? Because we spent tens of thousands of dollars on this plan at the RDN already. So from what the RDN said, if we wanted a business plan, it was going to cost lots more tens and thousands of dollars is what they told us, is why they didn't do it within the time frame that they had to report back to us. So I just need a clarification on what exactly you're asking for staff, so staff actually have direction, because they can just call the RDN and get the report and say, here you go, if this is what you're asking. So just a clarification first.
Sure, if that's all right.
Thank you.
So through you, so my understanding, Councillor Hong, and you can correct me, the NRE funding was for the services that, sorry, the RDN funding the 300,000.
No, he's talking about the main.
We're not talking about 300,000, we're talking about the building. That's the report that we got.
Okay, sorry, but bear with me. My understanding is that request and that give was for services rendered, fees for services, which was the original ask that we heard at the regional district was for us or the regional district to buy the land to build the building.
Yes, we have that
And
report.
that was turned down.
But we have that report.
Yes. What I'm hearing tonight is a different request, which is simply money for the NRE to build their building. That's what I heard tonight. So my request and the intent of my motion is to ask staff to look at what are the options to allow us to financially support that request. What impact will that have on our taxes if we do it? That's the intent of my motion.
Just for the $6 million building is.
Yes.
So for staff to be clear, because at the RDN, they asked us to buy the land from them too.
I'm not talking about that option.
Okay, so the only option you want to know is the number for $6 million, so that's clear to staff.
That's my intent.
Okay.
Councilor Bestwick.
Thank you. So if I understand the motion correctly, and the intent of the motion is to determine how to come up with the $6.05 million over how many years, how we can do it, if it's beyond 5 years, or if it's 20 years or 25 years, if it's an AAP, or if it's a referendum, or if we can just go borrow, and we can't just go borrow for something that's over a certain period of time. I'm hearing that the $300,000 has nothing to do with the construction. It's just all about offsetting the amount that it costs NRE to handle the products that don't come with any money attached to them. And once our staff who haven't seen the report read that report, it will answer pretty much all the questions that they will have about the options that are available to us and what the cost over 20 years will be, over 25 years will be, at what percent that we borrow the money at, et cetera, et cetera. It's all there. And it tells us how much it is. So it shouldn't take long because it's there. And so I'll just leave it at the end of the day, it comes down to what I said earlier, it's just money. It's just money.
Ms. Curry.
Thank you, Worship. And I just wanted to also make council aware that there is some legislation. The community charter has some legislation regarding partnering agreements and loaning of money, that sort of thing. So we'll have to take that into consideration when we report back to you.
Thank you. Councilor Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. And that goes along with one of my questions too, that there'll be a couple for staff, if that's all right. On that, I understand that there is a policy, and please correct me if I'm incorrect, that we cannot give to nonprofits in their direct competition with private industry. Is that accurate?
I don't know the answer to that right now. I just know when it comes to the community charter and partnering agreements, entering into agreements for over 5 years, sometimes it does require a referendum question out there or at least public notice and that sort of thing we're required to do.
Thank you, Ms. Gurry. So I would like that to be looked at, staff, because I think that's something we need to look at. My second question of staff is that if this does get approved, based on policies and procedures, does this have to go to RFP? Because it is city dollars that are used to that. So does that mean that we have to put it out to RFP, and perhaps the person that did all the background and all that information would not even be chosen? Could you please clarify that for me?
We'll look into that as well, Ms. Armstrong. I don't know if we have the answer for that right now.
John? He knows the answer.
Yes, that's correct. If it's, it would have to go through a public process.
So that's a concern then, that all this work that has already been done by the previous architect, whatever, could be null and void, and we have to put it out to RFP, and then it has to go to tender. So that could increase us dramatically. So those are, I think, things that we need to have looked at in that, because as we heard from Ms. Hastings, the preference is they've got the plan, they've got all that, but my understanding from our procedures and policies and bylaws is that we would not be allowed to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Now I'm more confused. So I thought they just wanted to borrow the money. We're not going to build this, are we? Like under city money?
Can I help here? Can we just, I think staff has heard everything that we've asked tonight. Can you sit down with the NRE? I want to know exactly what it is that the NRE is looking for on an annualized basis.
Because if
everything.
If we build this building, have we talked to the union? What is the annual?
Not building any buildings, Councillor.
Okay, because what's the annual maintenance of the building if we own it?
It's none of our concern.
So we're just lending them the money?
We are backstopping the loan. We're providing them with funding for their capital costs, for their capital funding of that building.
Okay, so
annual payments.
Then, thank you. So I want to ask staff some of the following things. I think Councillor Armstrong mentioned that competing against the private sector is a huge thing. What's stopping the next group from asking us for the exact same thing? Because Restore for Habitat for Humanity is nonprofit. They can come and ask us to build them a new building because we just built NRE a Restore. Is that possible from staff's perspective? It's the same thing. Salvation Army runs a thrift store, Restore. Can they come forward to borrow some money to build a building?
Yes, that's correct. They could.
So with the $6 million for the building, does that include equipment, or is that just the building? Because we talked about a sort line, that was $1 million for a sorting line to build it. So question to staff, I guess Ms. Charlotte Davis, is any of our private guys wanting to put a sort line in or looking at it?
I haven't had those discussions, through your worship.
Should we have these discussions with regards to this information that we've tasked you to do? Because I'm not going to support a nonprofit putting in a sort line when it's in the plan for expansion, because that's when Jan told us that there would be a sort line, and we've been hearing these. So this is where, if it's just for the building, I like the cost. If that's what they're asking for, no equipment, just exactly what they're building is $6 million, would be helpful.
I think in preparing a report, staff would want to be very clear on what was included in the 6.05 million.
I would appreciate that. Thank you very much. And then just also on the future of recycling, everybody knows that China is turning it down. We're lucky because we do have Recycle BC, which tries to reduce the amount of contamination. But do we even know what's coming up? Like, this is the consultation workshop. I'll give it to you, Charlotte. Do you have this?
I haven't seen it for depots, but I've seen it for residential.
Yeah, so I'll give this to you because I like staff to include this because some of these ones, they're interesting to look at. And I like to know how that's going to affect us with regards to the NRE and how they're going to be able to work with this, because what Recycle BC is going to do I would like to see an update on what next year's plan is, especially how that affects our recycling. Because the mayor said in the newspaper that we have $500,000 left over from our recycling. Is that correct?
I think you already got the answer to that, Councillor.
Well, I'd like the public to hear that because that was never expressed. In the media, the mayor said it cost us $1 million. We had a $500,000 contract. We have $500,000 left over from Recycle BC. Do we have any money left from that Recycle BC, or is that all used up?
The user rates that are calculated on what our current costs are, so the user rates cover our costs and there's no surplus.
Great, thank you very much.
So last two speakers, Councillor Yocum, Councillor Thorpe, then we're going to call a question. Councillor Yocum.
Thanks. I know we're all getting tired of this very important subject. I think we're walking, I'm going to be as supportive as I can. We're walking a slippery slope here where we're dealing with I know I get a nonprofit, I run a nonprofit as well, and I get all the rules of nonprofits. But as a city, we're walking a slippery slope with someone asked a question about building buildings. I'm just wondering if there'd be a way more conventional way for the dollar. We know the dollar amount. We know the monthly amount needed to pay for a mortgage. Jerry had it somewhere, whatever was needed, $360 a year. Because I just think it's a slippery slope. I don't even know if it's in all the regulations, but we're going to find out in the report. And I'm just curious why I got a loan for a nonprofit, not even fee simple land from bank, TD, for $5-point-something million for my nonprofit without owning land. So I'm just wondering, wouldn't it be easier for this group to go use the land as collateral and get a loan? Because if I was able to do that on nonprofit and non-fee simple land, basically putting nothing down, had no collateral, and we're a nonprofit, it would just be cleaner. I just feel like it's a slippery slope. And I get the amount, we know the amount that's needed now, 6.05. I just want to put that out there. I'm a little concerned about the groups that are going to follow up. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. I just want to speak. I'll wait for the report.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thanks, Chair, and I'll be
Last
brief.
word.
Yes, thank you. I just want to be very clear on something because I'm hearing a couple of comments. I do not support the city building this building for Nanaimo Recycling Exchange. The intent of my motion is for a staff report on options if we simply gave them the money they are requesting. And if we wanted to look at giving them that money, then how would we fund it? What would be the implications to our taxes, or where would it come from? So that we have that information, we can make that decision. So I just want to clarify that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So there is a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Show Councillor Bestwick opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, question period.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks.
Did you sign up, sir? It's all right.
Should we all run to the delegations now? Open the audience? Hang out with staff?
Sir? No, that's it? Oh. The first speaker is Dorothy Houghton.
Hi. Well, I see the fire chief has left, and I had a question. I guess, I don't know if you guys can answer this or not. In her report, she was talking about the overdose numbers, and I was wondering if those numbers for the overdose rates, if those included deaths as a consequence of the overdose.
I would
When
suggest she's looking at responses.
Oh, I see, okay, just responding to the
Correct.
incident, okay. My next question is, what year did I'm not sure if I've got the right name of the comprehensive homelessness strategy? What year did that start? Do you know?
I don't. Councillor Armstrong.
I believe they've been doing a homeless strategy for quite a few years, and now it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and building on the previous years.
Right.
But I could be incorrect, but that's my belief.
Okay, and a supplement then would be, does that strategy include looking for alternative properties? for
That would
housing?
fall, Ms. Holton, that would fall under the affordable housing strategy. That is ongoing right now as we speak. They're going to be going out for community consultation in the very near future with their presentation.
Right.
So I think that's.
So it's a different,
Yeah, but they do all work closely together, like the different staff members all work closely together and work back and forth. Because we've got a lot of committees that actually piggyback each other, like Community Vitality piggybacks on
and
community.
the reason why I asked that is because with this funding that came up, that, and that housing that just got voted down, why we don't have an alternative piece of property if this has been being worked on for so many years.
I can answer that too, I think. Part of the issue is that you have, we own quite a few city properties, like, you know, all over. Part of our policy is that they won't be just in one area, so they have to be different areas. So when you look at the properties that were owned in the south end in Nanaimo, that was the only one that fit the needs of that specific project. So in order to do that, council set direction out to staff to go look at alternative sites, which would mean possibly, you know, selling ours or trading, whatever. That all takes time. Then we also have to fast track rezoning. So there's all these factors involved that people aren't aware of that have to happen. So
Right,
it's not like, I mean, we have a certain number of inventories, right?
Mm.
But each, like, you know, you talk about, they need to be close to bus lines, that type of stuff, or supports, all of that. So in that particular case, and anybody else will correct me if I'm wrong, that was the only piece of property that we currently own that fit the needs in the south end of town.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick?
I'll just try to chip in there too. It was probably back around 2007, thereabouts, when Rich Coleman came with the homelessness initiative project that we were allocated 6 sites or 6 projects to go on 6 different sites. The government pulled one away, which is about 8 units, and then we did 3 and then 4, and one was going to, one is turned into the project on the Quarterway Bridge site there. That is not what you would consider, but those funds were made available. But you would not consider that to be one of those properties like Uplands or the Cranberry potential project and so on. So probably 10 years in the making, and I'm sure that there's been other iterations before that leading into this, where we are today.
Right. Thank you.
Before you go, you brought up the question as to whether or not there was a linkage between our purchasing policy, our land purchasing policy, and our affordable housing or homelessness action plan. There never has been. But I can tell you right now, based on what happened with Cranberry, perhaps there should be.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you. Yeah,
I think so. Thank you.
thank you. The next one, Mr. Boland.
Ladies and gentlemen, a couple of questions which I hope will be fairly quick, but just leave my mind boggled from last week, again this week. The question of finding an alternative site. We have a comprehensive and quite extensive computer system linked with all of the information about who owns what, where it's at, what facilities are on it, whether it's vacant or whether it may be junk ratio between any existing structures and the land, which we have several buildings here in town that really are in junk situations. Why, with all of this comprehensive information, and you, as I say, you know the owner, you know the tax status. Why does it take a terrible amount of time to determine what the eligible properties are? Once you get past that stage, then I can understand the need negotiations. But this is all factual information. Then after you've got the facts, you can get into the politics of the thing. And I'm just finding it terribly difficult to understand why the search itself should take any time at all, practically.
Mr. Lindsay?
Your worship, what I would say is, I think it was 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago now, that staff brought forward reports based on council's original direction to look for alternative sites. So our process was very much what the speaker outlines. And open, we had a report that identified all the city properties in the city, all of the city-owned properties citywide that met the criteria for a project like this.
Yeah,
We also did the same for council for private properties, but that is the tools you've discussed, and the process is very much part of the work that goes into generating those reports in that list.
And I will say, I believe that I did see a map showing some properties, but I think they were all related to the city. As I recall, your initial request that went to you was only for city-owned properties. But anyway, we've got provincial property, we've got federal property, we've got school board property, we've got private property. All of it is possible to some extent, and I just still find it difficult to understand. If we know what the requirements of the site are, do we really need, I think it was Cranberry's 11 acres, as I recall. I don't believe you need 11 acres for 41 modular homes, or 44. But again, I don't know what the criteria were, but certainly I'd like to know, and I would suspect that you would all like to know exactly what the criteria are on the search, because once the criteria are there, it falls out of your system. We're paying a lot for that system, and it's quite a good one. So anyway, I still don't understand it, but maybe I never will. So I can move on to the next question unless...
I would just add, Your Worship, that the criteria were established. I believe they were in the report that came in open that evening. Council's motion was very clear. It was not just to look at public properties, but also private properties. Staff did that, reported back to council on that motion. So
Well,
that work has been done.
Excuse me then, but are we saying that there are no properties available? So we might as well forget about going after this money because there's nothing there?
The original criteria was needed to be city-owned, needed to be appropriately zoned, and needed to be in the south end. That came out to one property.
Okay. If that was what was put to staff, I can quite understand what the problem is. Maybe a little more thought might have gone into that. But anyway, I'll leave that aside because I have one other question that really kind of bugs me. And in the discussion of the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange, there was considerable discussion of a document that apparently was done or is being done by the regional district that some people seem to have seen, but nobody else seems to have seen. Can somebody tell me what this mysterious document is and where I could get a hold of it?
I'm sorry.
The document that's being tossed back and forth, as I understood it anyway, a document that was done by the RDN, but it couldn't be released, and some people said they had seen it, and some people said they hadn't seen it. And I'm wondering what this document is and what's in it, because there were intimations that the information you were asking for tonight, a lot of it was in that document. And yet we've got, 8 people out of 9 who sit on the RDN. The RDN gets, 40% of their money from us?
56.
Anyway, whatever it is there such a document? And is there some reason why you don't have it and the public doesn't have it?
Okay, so perhaps I can turn this question over to the Vice Chair of the RDN.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll certainly try to answer. Mr. Boland and others can add in or correct me. Yes, there is a document, and it was the result of the Recycling Exchange's initial ask at the regional district, which was to buy the land and build the building for them. Staff at the regional district were asked to produce a report based on that request. It was quite an exhaustive report, which went into a lot of permutations and details, and the regional directors received that report And just as we were receiving the report, and I think this is fair to say, the Recycling Exchange changed their ask away from asking us or the regional district to buy the land, build the building. They changed their ask to a straight cash request. So the regional district document that you're referring to was an in-camera report, which we all saw, and it unfortunately, no, I'll take that back. I think it answered some of the questions that people had, but not everything directly related to the new ask, which is a simple cash request.
Well, as you probably know, I'm not a big fan of a lot of your in-camera meetings here, and I'm certainly not going to be happy with them there either. But it seems to me that since the ask is coming really to the public in the end, no matter what you decide, the public will be paying for it, that an in-camera problem such as that isn't really an in-camera problem. I'm not sure who's under section 90-1, which I assume it was under 90-1, not 90-2, was being offended. Which clause in there?
So again, I'll attempt to answer, and my answer would be this, that their initial request did involve some issues relating to labor and land, and which qualified it for in camera. And I think that was a correct interpretation. I'm sorry, sir?
General or specific? I believe specifics might be exempt.
Okay, we're not here to debate it. Question period.
Generalities, I suspect not. Anyway, okay. That's,
thanks.
Councillor Bestwick.
Sorry.
Okay. Next one is Mr. Boland again, 1213. Okay, Mr. Gartshore.
Good evening. Thank you very much. A long evening. Appreciate that we're all here. My questions are to do with the monies, item number 13, the monies that come from Recycle BC, which I understand is about $1 million to the city annually and about $1 million to the regional district of Nanaimo. Where do those monies go?
They come directly to the city.
And what does the city do with those funds? Use them in general operations?
No. It funds the pickup and hauling out to the facility designated by Recycle BC to do the recycling.
How much of those funds go to the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange? Because I heard somebody refer to some of those funds going to the NRE.
At this point, zero.
Sorry?
Zero.
Zero. So if that money declines in terms of the money coming from the Recycling Exchange, then it would not impact the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange then. Is that correct?
I don't understand your question.
So the NRE would not be impacted
Correct. Yes, now I'm going to, yes, thank you.
Okay, just wanted to be sure because
Right.
I thought somebody was saying that would impact the NRE. Was there a business plan done on the new garbage trucks?
Yes.
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 Was there?
Yes.
Okay, so that included operations and costs and
Yes.
all those kinds of things?
Yes.
Great, and the city paid for that, I'm imagining?
Yes.
Why would the city not want to do the same thing to generate a plan with the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange, given that they are doing part of the business of bringing us to zero waste?
Now.
I can answer that one.
No. Councillor Hong, you want to give it a try?
Yeah. Zero Waste is a regional district of operations. We did punt it to the regional district. I thought we were getting a business plan. We didn't. So we did spend tens of thousands of dollars, like I said, to create a plan to build and finance the facility. They just didn't take it that step because they said it would cost tens of thousands of dollars to get that plan and lot more time than we told them to get an answer back to us. So that's that question. With regards to that money we get from Recycle BC, it goes exactly for recycling. But when recycling commodities become less and you can't get any money for it, it affects everybody, city, private, and the NRE, because they can't get rid of the stuff or they can't make any money on it. So if our revenue goes up, everybody will do good. If our revenue goes down and costs go up, everybody will be affected just the same. So that's how they're impacted. And we don't have any of those numbers to see on, case by case scenario, what ifs. So, and that's what we were looking for. So when I made that comment that it does affect it, it affects everybody when Recycle BC changes the plan. So if China doesn't take our paper, like they did out east, what are you gonna do with it? They're gonna ask us and say, well, can we bury it in the dump? Because we got whatever, how many tons and bales they got stacked in warehouses and they don't have anything to do with it. So that's where I got to that point where Recycle BC makes the rules and they change them on a regular basis. Thank you.
My next question is, do we have any idea what would happen to the soiling of our recycling materials at the curbside if the NRE stops existing? Do we have any idea how much it would cost the city in products going into the yellow bag or into the new bins if we do not have the Nanaimo Recycling Exchange?
What products are you referring to?
The products that are currently accepted by the NRE but not accepted at the curbside.
Well, this is what I would have loved to have seen on how much the NRE got for that and how much they took of that material, which is something that we would like to have seen each individual item. Like they said, they took this many tons. They either disposed of it or recycled it for this cost. And then our staff could have put those numbers together and said, you know what? If we had to do this, the NRE diverted this much, and we had to do this, it would cost us this much. But we didn't have those, and that's what a business plan would have done. And that's what I was trying to get at, is we didn't have that information to make a decision. I would like to know that exact same question. And how much would it cost for us just to leave everything at the curb? That's the most convenient way possible. Maybe we should build a sort line, be our own recycling, and get a contract from Recycle BC. I don't know, maybe that's cheaper for us to do that, but we can't have that discussion until we have the information. That's what we're trying to get. Thank you.
Are you aware that the regional district of Cowichan pays exactly double for their waste management to the regional district in Nanaimo? And they take care of all of the recycling and garbage disposal. So I think it's fair to say that and I'm all for unions, but when we pay union wages and we pay the going cost rather than what a recycling and nonprofit center can do, that we are saving a huge amount of money. And so when it comes time to the business plan, I'm wondering if we've really looked at what it is that they are saving us and how much they are saving the landfill from filling up from things like styrofoam that fill it up very quick. It's not very heavy, but it fills it up very quick. And have we looked at the cost of what it's going to cost us to build an incinerator, which is usually about 4 times the price of landfill? Have we looked at truly the cost of what the NRE is doing for us today? Do we know how much they saved us? No, we don't. Is it worth a few dollars on our tax bill? I think that the city is saying yes. So I would implore you to look at all of those costs when you're costing out the NRE. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Bestwick, second by Councillor Hong. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.